Chapter 894. Immortal position. After concluding the battle with Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, Ji Xiaoyu followed Guan and continued a long journey. They seemed to have reached the limits of the world, where the celestial vault ahead turned pitch black, devoid of clouds and stars. The red moon at the edge of the earth had vanished, and a dazzling white light shimmered on the horizon, like a white line hugging the ground, guiding their direction forward. Ji Xiaoyu asked, "How much longer?" Guan looked ahead and replied, "Soon." "What, you already want to go back?" "I just can't sense the 9 Nether Emperor's presence. I know you want me to understand the path of reincarnation along the way, but the previous battle has benefited me immensely." Ji Xiaoyu spoke earnestly. With Guan's assistance, she gained a deeper understanding of the reincarnation forbidden world steel, and along with her perception of the path of reincarnation along the journey, she felt content and even eager to return to retreat. Guan did not respond. A strong wind blew from ahead, drawing Ji Xiaoyu's gaze. She squinted and saw a terrifying figure faintly appearing in the depths of darkness, larger than Zhang Buku's Dharma aspect. Even as she looked upward, she couldn't see the figure's shoulders. Guan halted and Ji Xiaoyu followed suit. She gazed at the mysterious giant shadow ahead and softly asked, "Did we just happen upon it, or is it due to your divine skills?" Guan did not answer but said, "After 1 stick of incense's time, we will return. Observe his posture closely." Upon hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu intently studied the mysterious giant shadow. Could this be the 9 Nether Emperor? Even just observing his stance brought Ji Xiaoyu vast pressure. The 9 Nether Emperor was undoubtedly the most powerful presence she had ever encountered. Yet, if the 9 Nether Emperor was the strongest, where did that leave Guan? As soon as Ji Xiaoyu conceived such a thought, she quickly extinguished it, realizing that guessing Guan's strength meant nothing to her current self. She couldn't squander the opportunity Guan had arranged for her. The world was silent. Guan did not disturb Ji Xiaoyu. He too was watching the 9 Nether Emperor. The Celestial Emperor did not reveal his true cultivation level. The mixed element Profound Venerable Immortal was the highest realm, yet among such immortals the 9 Nether Emperor surpassed the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable and was beyond comparison to the Heavenly Emperor. Guan could see that the 9 Nether Emperor was walking a path different from the Heavenly Tao, requiring no assistance from anyone. Regrettably, the 9 Nether Emperor had already been persuaded by the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable to join forces with the Dark Heavenly Court against the Celestial Court. The Celestial Emperor's cause and effect were also nearing, signaling an impending great battle that would eject the Celestial Court. Before ascending to sainthood, Guan had looked forward to this battle, but after becoming a saint, everything seemed predetermined, unchanged from the past. The 9 Nether Emperor sat in the darkness, unaware of the two watching him. He showed no sign of breathing, akin to a motionless mountain. 1 stick of incense's time quickly passed. Ji Xiaoyu withdrew her gaze, took a deep breath and said, "Let's head back." As her words fell, her surroundings abruptly changed, returning her to the Taoist palace. She turned to look at Guan, only to see him heading towards the door. "The 9 Nether Emperor was completely unaware of our previous battle?" Ji Xiaoyu asked. Guan did not pause in his steps, saying, "If he could perceive it, I wouldn't dare bring you here." Ji Xiaoyu remained silent, watching him depart. After walking several steps forward, Guan's figure vanished into thin air. Ji Xiaoyu lowered her gaze, raised her right hand, and a strand of sword qi emerged from her palm, deepening gradually. After taking Ji Xiaoyu on a trip to the underworld, Guan resumed his peaceful life unchanged since ascending to sainthood. During their time in the underworld, besides helping Ji Xiaoyu gain insight and assisting Zhang Buku, Guan truly intended to visit the 9 Netherworld Death Realm. In the time spent in the underworld, he had merged with its destiny, so now the underworld held no secrets from his perception, and he could control the Tao rules of the underworld. Guan's understanding of primordial Tai True Saint deepened, becoming anew. Time flies. The battle between immortals and demons in the 3,000 great worlds continued relentlessly, with forces from both the Celestial Court and the Dark Heavenly Court constantly engaging, immortal gods casting spells to stabilize the Tao rules of the 3,000 great worlds, preventing collapse across all heavens and myriad realms. Yang Jian of the Celestial Court found himself drawn into the battles, even encountering Li Ya. Their long-awaited reunion was filled with emotions. Li Ya was astonished at Guan's methods, while Yang Jian admired Li Ya, who chose to travel alone and battle chaos evil demons rather than relying on his master, a decision Yang Jian deeply respected. Over the long epochs, the war between immortals and demons became the backdrop for the era, attracting various great world powers and prodigies to join the fray, with others seizing the opportunity to seek revenge against the heavenly court immortals. The undefeated Emperor clan, allied with Guan, leveraged the chance to avenge against immortal gods, despite having clan members ascend to immortality with Guan's help. The unbeaten Emperor ancestor still couldn't let go of his hatred. Millions of years passed in the blink of an eye. Since ascending to sainthood, Guan no longer reaped lifespans. Instead, he relied solely on medicinal herbs for growth, which was slower than before but left him satisfied. Even as the strongest within the heavenly Tao, Guan never ceased aspiring to grow stronger, aiming to achieve perfection realm of primordial Tai true saint and venture into higher realms. Not seeing an end to the Tao rules, he understood there was still space for improvement. That year, another Wuxia disciple ascended to immortality, stirring the world. This disciple achieved immortality beyond the dojo, attracting attention from great power cultivators of all teachings. Thus, all 10 immortal positions given by Xianyuan human venerable to Guan were filled. This final immortal was the 8th generation disciple Zhuang Xian, a paragon of integrity revered worldwide, recognized as a righteous great cultivator. His ascension assured cultivators worldwide that ample accumulation of virtue leads to immortality. Guan stood on the cliff, wind at his face, watching as Zhuang Xian was enveloped by the celestial Tao light, transported to the celestial court by its destiny, where he would transform into a heavenly court immortal. Finally it's over. At last I can leave. Guan whispered to himself, smiling as he began to look forward to life in a new world. And Zizai suddenly landed beside him, respectfully saluting. After the salute, and Zizai hesitated to speak. Guan gazed into the distance, saying, "Have you ever considered whether his dissatisfaction stems from missing the immortal position or from something else?" He referred to Zizai's most esteemed disciple, the 15th generation disciple Wuxia. Having achieved innate golden immortal, Wuxia had become Wuxiji's most powerful disciple on the surface, representing Wuxiji outwardly. For millions of years, disciples continued to ascend to immortality, yet Wuxia remained unchosen. And Zizai could sense his inner frustration. Upon hearing this, Zizai immediately asked, "Ancestor, what aspect of him do you disapprove of?" Through countless years, despite Wuxia surpassing many second-generation disciples, Guan had never summoned him alone, leading many disciples to believe Guan was dissatisfied with Wuxia. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 895, True Colors Revealed. I have no discontent with him, but I also have no interest in him. The reason for not letting him ascend to immortality is that he cannot ascend. There is a cause and effect on him that you cannot see through, and the celestial Tao immortal position will expose his true nature. Guan looked into the distance and softly answered. Wuxia is the incarnation of the Taoist emperor's destiny, essentially a calculation against the primordial Tao emperor. Even before becoming a saint, Guan never took the Taoist emperor seriously, so he wouldn't interfere with Wuxia's growth. But if Wuxia went to the celestial court, it would also be a disaster for him. Of course, Wuxia himself is not interested in becoming an immortal. What he cares about is Wuxi's attitude towards him. What others have, he also wants. He can refuse but he cannot not have it. And Zizai, upon hearing this, his face changed dramatically. Expose his true nature? Could it be that the Wuxia catastrophe that ancestor spoke of years ago is indeed Wuxia? And Zizai fell silent, digesting ancestor's words. Guan did not disturb him and continued to gaze over the world. Soon he would leave the celestial spirit great world, and now what he saw before him were the little pieces of the past. Although he felt a sense of emotion, he was not reluctant. Even if he left, he could return whenever he wished. It's just that once he left, he would live in another world. Ancestor, what do you think I should do to console him? And Zizai cautiously asked. Having spent so many years together, his affection for Wuxia had deepened, and even if Wuxia was truly the disaster, it was hard for him to handle. Guan turned around, looked at Zizai, and asked, "If you were made the master of Wuxia, would you be willing to take on this responsibility?" And Zizai as the master would inevitably favor Wuxia, and by then, everything Wuxia wanted would be within his grasp, naturally resolving his discontent. However, upon hearing this, Zizai was immediately terrified. He knelt down in a hurry and shouted anxiously, "Ancestor, you cannot abandon me. Wuxia in my heart will never compare to you. I want to always be by your side to serve you." This was his true sentiment. Without Guan he wouldn't have anything he has now and wouldn't have met Wuxia. He was forever grateful to Ancestor, never wanting to leave Ancestor. Moreover, he knew that following Ancestor was the right path. Guan looked at Nzazai and asked with a smile, "Do you truly think so?" Nzazai nodded and said, "I truly think so. Then you should choose suitable candidates to manage the Wuxia because not everyone can leave with me. Ancestor, how can you be sure the disciples are unwilling to follow you?" Nzazai hesitated for a moment, then seriously spoke, noting the many disciples remaining at the Taoist field of the beginningless who were dedicated to the pursuit of the Tao. Guan planned to leave the celestial spirit great world to find a different environment to live in, so he was reluctant to bring too many, but hearing Nzazai's words, he suddenly had another idea. His lips curled into a smile, thinking the new idea was very good and interesting. "From now on you can ask the disciples. When the time comes, I'll leave with all who wish to follow me, but you must tell them that once they leave with me they can't come back." Guan looked at Nzazai and laughed softly. Nzazai was delighted as long as Ancestor agreed. He immediately thanked Guan on behalf of the other disciples, then left in a hurry. Guan stood on the cliff and looked for a while longer before disappearing. That day the news of the Ancestor leaving the celestial spirit great world spread, prompting more and more disciples to gather to discuss this matter. In the following days the news even reached the Nine Spirit dynasty. The majority of disciples were born on the Nine Spirit continent. Their families and friends were on the continent. They knew how significant the Ancestor's decision was and could not keep it a secret. For a time the Nine Spirit continent was in turmoil. In less than a year the news spread to the entire world, shaking various sects, causing fear, concern and excitement alike. Regardless of how well Wuxia performed, there would always be opposition and doubt. 3 years later. That morning. Before Guan stepped out of his house, the courtyard was bustling with noise. "Nonsense, hurry back." Nzazai's voice was heard, and it was filled with anger. A man's voice followed saying, "No way, today I must see Ancestor." The owner of this voice was none other than Wuxia. Wearing a black robe, Guan tidied his garments and then pushed the door open. Upon entering the courtyard, he saw Wuxia kneeling in the courtyard, facing his door. Nzazai stood beside Wuxia looking furious. Shenzhen sat by the artifact refining cauldron, curiously observing Wuxia. Seeing Guan coming out, all three of them focused their gaze on Guan. At that moment, Wuxia's previously firm and resolute expression became tense. He had just exited seclusion last night and was furious upon hearing that Ancestor was leaving. He found out later than other disciples, and it wasn't just the second-generation disciples who knew before him. The news had spread throughout the dojo. What did this mean? It meant the Ancestor hadn't considered him. He came to the courtyard, enduring for 2 hours before stepping in. Nzazai came because Shenzhen had sent him a message. Upon seeing Guan, Nzazai quickly saluted, while Wuxia gritted his teeth and stubbornly stared at Guan. Having joined Wuxia millions of years ago, he was always nervous when meeting Ancestor. His words were stuck in his throat. This time, he didn't want to be timid because the Ancestor was leaving. Guan looked at Wuxia and asked with a smile, "Why do you need to see me?" Seeing Guan smile, for some reason Wuxia felt a sense of shame. Could it be that Ancestor didn't disregard him? Upon thinking carefully throughout these years, every time he saluted Ancestor, Ancestor would smile and nod at him. It was because of this that even though he hadn't received the treatment he wanted, he still remained loyal to Wuxia. Wuxia initially wanted to express his discontent but couldn't bring himself to say it. He paused, then said, "Ancestor, could you take me with you wherever you go?" "Sure." Guan agreed readily, leaving Wuxia stunned. He thought Ancestor would question him, asking if he was prepared or ready to not return, but unexpectedly, Ancestor directly agreed to his request. This left Wuxia feeling like his anger was hitting a soft pillow. His heart felt empty. While he was no longer angry, he wasn't happy either. Nzazai hurriedly said, "Ancestor has agreed, now withdraw. Don't disturb Ancestor's rest." He reached out to pull Wuxia, but Wuxia didn't get up. Guan looked at Wuxia and said, "Actually, there's no need to overthink. I didn't see you because we lack common interests. Wuxia is different from other sects. Your actions won't go unnoticed by Wuxia, and I myself won't interfere in Wuxia's matters either." Lack of common interests? This reason left Wuxia very surprised, and even Nzazai was taken aback. Could the reason be so simple? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 896. New World, New Era. Ultimately, Wuxia was taken away by Nzazai. When he left, he seemed dazed, never imagining that the answer that had puzzled him for tens of millions of years could be so simple. Shenzhen looked at Guan, who was stretching his body, and smiled. They must be very surprised, but I believe what you said is true. She knew Guan too well. Guan was not interested in the talent or achievements of his disciples. Otherwise, Shangguan Xianer and Suhan wouldn't be so close to him. Shangguan Xianer loves writing books, whereas Suhan loves playing with everything. For those who practice Tao, their thoughts shouldn't be too cluttered. This kid is good at everything except his thoughts are too mixed up, Guan casually commented. Wuxia wanted to follow him and he did not resist. Even if the founder of Taoist emperor stood before him, it would not be a concern. He somewhat even looked forward to the Taoist emperor challenging him. Exhausting all efforts but unable to shake him in the slightest, the result must be a significant blow to that existence, right? Guan suddenly realized he was a bit like the celestial emperor. He shook his head and laughed, then walked toward the outside of the courtyard. Shenzhen looked at his back and asked, "When are we leaving?" "Next year." Upon hearing Guan's answer, Shenzhen's eyes also revealed a look of anticipation. Although she rarely went out, she also longed for a completely new environment. The coming year would be the most torturous year for the Wuxia disciples. Leaving the celestial spirit great world, they would have to abandon their relationships in this world, but if they didn't leave, they would lose the ancestors' protection. Some even wanted to plead with Nzazai to take non-Wuxia disciple identities along, but all were sternly refused by Nzazai. A year passed quickly. At the end of summer that year, Nzazai gathered all the disciples willing to leave with Guan at the foot of the main mountain, and everywhere between the mountains human figures could be seen. The second-generation disciples also gathered in Guan's courtyard, discussing among themselves. "It's a shame Qin Chuan isn't here anymore." And Xing Tian sighed, his tone a bit regretful. Only with Qin Chuan there would the second-generation disciples be complete. Even LV Xian rushed from the outer heaven, quietly discussing Taoist techniques with Zue in the corner. Jiang Shi nodded and started to chat with Xing Tian about past times. Other disciples were curious about the next world they were going to and how far the journey would be. The ghost mother of ephemera stood at the gate, looking at the figures of the disciples with a smile on her face, feeling it was so beautiful to maintain this moment. The days of upheaval and unpredictable life and death seemed like events in a previous life, so distant and blurry. Bang! The door of the attic swung open and all the disciples turned their heads to look. Guan, dressed in blue, walked out from inside, wearing resplendent clothes with an extraordinary aura. As he stepped into the courtyard, everyone felt the whole world became brighter. And Nzazai raised his hand in salute and first spoke, "Ancestor, the disciples willing to leave with us have already gathered, and the authority of Wuxia has been handed over." Guan nodded lightly, then walked to the center of the courtyard. All the disciples looked at Guan, their eyes full of anticipation, fantasizing about the world they were about to go to after deciding to leave. Guan collected the artifact refining cauldron into his palm and then smiled. "Don't rush, wait for him to announce it." The disciples were puzzled, and the quick-tempered blood prison great saint was the first to ask, "Who is he?" Guan did not answer, merely smiling silently. The disciples became even more confused. Suddenly, an overwhelming heavenly power descended from the sky, enveloping the entire world. The faces of the second-generation disciples changed and they looked up. The chaos evil demon invades the heavenly Tao, the celestial court upholds the heavenly constitution and descends to the mortal world, exterminating the evil demons hidden among humans. This intention shall not waver. However, during this process, the actions of the immortal gods have been unfair, causing the innocent creatures wrongful deaths. Sangtian will not overlook or tolerate this occurrence. I am Emperor Taihao, bearing the will of the heavenly Tao, founding the Middle Heaven great world. All innocent creatures who perished in this calamity shall be reborn in Middle Heaven, becoming beyond ordinary beings. From now on, all beings shall cultivate virtue and do good deeds, thus they may ascend to Middle Heaven and obtain the Fuyuan of the great Tao. A majestic and sonorous voice echoed through the entire world, not just the celestial spirit great world, but all 3,000 great worlds and countless mortal realms below heard the voice of Emperor Taihao. The second-generation disciples were all stunned and instinctively looked at Guan. An Xian, who had long learned of the name Middle Heaven from Guan, was equally surprised that Middle Heaven was founded by the Son of Heaven. Could it be that the Master had long reached some agreement with the celestial court? Other disciples thought so too, otherwise how could it be such a coincidence? Guan smiled and said, "You're all overthinking. I chose Middle Heaven because Middle Heaven will be a heavenly Tao world like never before, and will become the center of heavenly Tao. That world is more vast than you can imagine. Once in middle heaven, the Wuxia disciples must not act recklessly. I will have you conceal your cultivation levels and from then on, join me in living as immortal mortals, hidden in the wilderness. Heavenly Tao Center. The disciples automatically ignored Guan's latter words. They already understood the heavenly Tao, and those disciples who had ventured out revered the heavenly Tao even more. Being called the heavenly Tao Center, middle heaven is definitely extraordinary. And Zizai was about to ask when to set out when suddenly, Guan took a step forward, and the surrounding environment drastically changed, instantly transporting them into a forest. The disciples instinctively looked around, feeling a different spiritual chi from the celestial spirit great world. Guan immediately initiated the lifespan dojo, directly marking the earth, and began constructing a new Taoist field of the beginningless. This location was pre-selected by him before coming. As the lifespan dojo opened, a vast influx of earth spiritual chi surged out. All the disciples could feel the changes between the heavens and earth. They didn't think much, considering it a first arrival adjustment to a new world. Zizai, go settle the disciples. Guan commanded, and Zizai, still in shock, came to his senses and immediately saluted and left. The other second-generation disciples looked around, their divine senses stretching out, the excitement on their faces growing stronger. They actually arrived at another world. Furthermore, this world was far larger than the celestial spirit great world, and the spiritual energy was much richer, almost like the immortal realm. Guan turned to the disciples and smiled. Middle heaven is newly founded, beings have yet to be born, you all shall temporarily remain within the dojo. Once the world prospers, you may occasionally go out to explore, but do not reveal your true cultivation levels. Beings have yet to be born? This made the disciples feel indescribable. Guan walked toward the depths of the woods and Xen followed curiously. Master, does this world possess great creation? With her understanding of the Master, how could he come to such a dull world without anyone to accompany him? Reflecting on what the Master said about Middle Heaven Great World becoming the center of the heavenly Tao, she felt the Master had already seen the future of Middle Heaven Great World. Indeed it will. In the future, the strong from the 3,000 great worlds and great Tao domain will congregate here to cultivate and contend for destiny. Guan replied as he walked. And Xen pursued further, can the Son of Heaven possess such abilities? Guan smiled and said, in name he created it. In fact, it was the heavenly Tao that created it, and it has been prepared for countless years, always hidden deep within celestial Tao destiny. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 897. The first creature Wuxia flew out of the forest and hovered in the air. He looked around, mountains rising and falling, vast and endless, surrounded by majestic spiritual energy refreshing him. Although he had resolved to follow the ancestor, he still had doubts in his heart. He didn't know where to go or if the destination could compare to the celestial spirit great world. Now, could such a world be the central heaven that the Son of Heaven mentioned just now? Wuxia thought excitedly. He didn't think it was a coincidence. Emperor Taihao had just announced the creation of the Middle Heaven Great World, and they arrived in a completely new great world. The ancestor could even arrange for disciples to ascend to immortality, which indicated that the ancestor had an agreement with the celestial court long ago. He flew forward, admiring the scenery along the way. More and more disciples flew into the air, marveling at the scenery of this new world. Some gathered together, others acted alone. Wuxia flew for thousands of miles before stopping. He saw a majestic mountain range ahead, and his intuition told him that crossing that mountain range would take him out of the range of the dojo. This feeling was very mysterious. Many disciples who reached the edge of the dojo had the same feeling, which made them dare not cross the mountain range at the edge of the dojo. That evening, Zizai began to instruct the disciples to build their own cave mansions and set many rules. The worries in the disciples' hearts had completely dissipated because Central Heaven was indeed more fortunate than the celestial spirit great world. Not only was the spiritual energy more profound and mysterious, but the Tao intent pervading between heaven and earth was more advanced. Guan was also building his courtyard, having never built a house himself, so he was very serious. In the following days, Wuxia disciples discovered that the number of disciples brought by the ancestor was not small, as many as 2 million, which amazed them at the ancestor's capability. Privately, the disciples would also discuss how far Central Heaven was from the celestial spirit great world. In the entirety of the Central Heaven great world, aside from them, there were temporarily no living beings present. The world was silent, with lush flowers, grass and trees, and the scenery was magnificent, like a forgotten heaven and earth. On the mountain range at the edge of the dojo, there were always Wuxia disciples standing on the mountain looking out. They learned more and more about Central Heaven, but even the strongest innate golden immortal could not cover the whole of Central Heaven with their divine sense. Central Heaven was very large, larger than they had expected, and they began to believe Emperor Taihao's words. The war between immortals and demons in the 3,000 great worlds continued. News of Ancestor Master Wuxi's departure only circulated within the celestial spirit great world and did not affect the grand scheme. Many years later, after confirming the departure of Ancestor Master Wuxia, the world of the celestial spirit great world began to stir. In the 22nd year of arriving in Central Heaven, on a hillside, Guan walked forward with Xiaolan. Today he brought Xiaolan to Central Heaven. Before coming, Xiaolan had already dealt with the matters of the Xiao clan. The family had grown, and she felt that even without her, the family could continue. Only when she truly stepped into Central Heaven did she feel at ease. Xiaolan looked up at the Wuxia disciples sowing seeds in the fields in the distance and suddenly smiled. I suddenly understand why you wanted to leave the celestial spirit great world. Indeed, this is true freedom, unfettered, without any ties of cause and effect. Guan followed her gaze and smiled. In life there are always chains. Even if mortals step onto the immortal path, the chains remain. Perhaps for all living beings, the meaning of reincarnation is to unload all the cause and effect of a lifetime and start anew. Xiaolan nodded. Thinking about it this way, reincarnation is indeed a good thing. Why don't those disciples have a cultivation level? Xiaolan suddenly asked curiously. Guan replied, I had them conceal their cultivation level. From now on, everyone will live like mortals, but they can continue to cultivate. Once everyone is accustomed to hiding their cultivation level, I will lift the restriction and let you interact with all living beings under heaven and earth. This will be a form of cultivation for you too. Xiaolan thought carefully for a moment. 1 day or 2 was fine, but if they had to disguise themselves for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or even longer, it would indeed be very challenging but also quite interesting. Many years from now, this piece of heaven and earth will become more prosperous than the celestial spirit great world. In the future, there will also be beings from the celestial spirit great world adventuring here, making a name for themselves. Perhaps you will hear about the deeds of old acquaintances and descendants. Guan continued speaking, his eyes deep, as if the entire future was within his gaze. These words sent Xiaolan into endless imagination. If descendants of the Xiao clan could venture into Central Heaven, that would be wonderful. She could lend them a helping hand. Guan did not stop her thoughts because if his old acquaintances came to Central Heaven, he would do the same. Making a choice does not mean giving up something. The two of them continued strolling and chatting about the future. They felt no pressure to survive and were full of enthusiasm for what lay ahead. Finally, Guan took Xiaolan to build a pavilion on the mountain of no end, at the very center of the dojo. Not all second-generation disciples could live on the mountain of no end. Only those close to him could reside on this mountain. The mountain of no end was one of the tallest mountains in the dojo, towering over 10,000 feet and stretching for hundreds of miles, magnificent to the extreme, often shrouded in thick fog. Guan watched as Xiaolan and Shenzhen came together, and he thought of Ji Xiaoyu and Jiang Qion. Both ladies chose to stay in the celestial spirit great world and planned to ascend together to Central Heaven with their disciples in the future. Guan respected this decision. Besides, in the celestial spirit great world he could still protect them. Telling them about this matter was only to spare them from overthinking it. After watching for a while, Guan walked towards the forest, intending to return to his courtyard to rest. As he walked, he looked toward the 3,000 great worlds. He no longer wished to intervene in the future of the 3,000 great worlds. The dark heavenly court and the celestial court would face a war sooner or later. Several mixed-element profound venerable immortals, including the 9 Nether Emperor, would erupt in a decisive battle with the celestial Tao venerable of the celestial court, ultimately forcing out the celestial emperor. The celestial emperor could easily sweep them away, but he insisted on feigning death and passing the title of celestial emperor to Emperor Taihao. By bestowing the name Taihao upon that son of heaven, he showed his favor. Yet, no one knew that this son of heaven was actually himself, and once he feigned death, he would replace his will. From then on, under the leadership of the Taihao heavenly emperor, the heavenly Tao would usher in a new era, and the celestial realms would have better order. From the perspective of destiny, the celestial Tao destiny was about to soar, proving that the celestial emperor's calculation was correct. At least he found a way for the celestial Tao to soar once more. The future celestial court would better align with Guan's vision of the immortal gods, each having its role, centering on all living beings. It's just interesting. Guan's mouth curled into a smile, a hint of anticipation in his eyes. The celestial emperor had not yet given up on the chance to duel with him, and in the distant future, there would still be variables in the heavenly Tao. Central heaven would be the main stage of the heavenly Tao, and the heavenly realm, where the celestial court was located, would also establish a passage with this realm. There were still 10 million years until the first living being of this world was born. By that time, the war between immortals and demons of the 3,000 great worlds would also conclude, and the first living being nurtured by central heaven would have an unknown cause and effect with this war. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 898. The impossible-to-reach realm for the all-living beings of the celestial spirit great world. 10 million years is very long, even considered an era. But for the Wuxia disciples who moved to central heaven, it passes quickly. After 10 million years, numerous medicine gardens have been established within the Taoist field of the beginningless. Each disciple has their own medicine garden and field, and Guan's medicine garden is personally tended by the ghost mother of ephemera. That year, an unprecedented great battle erupted in the void above the 3,000 great worlds, so much so that even the Wuxia disciples in central heaven could sense it. The disciples sought familiar fellow disciples, gathered together, and discussed the pressure coming from outer heaven. At this moment, Guan was harvesting medicinal herbs, and the ghost mother of ephemera beside him curiously asked, "Is there a battle outside?" "It's the final battle between immortals and demons in the 3,000 great worlds." Guan casually replied as he carefully wrapped the harvested mature herbs and placed them in the bamboo basket before the ghost mother of ephemera. The ghost mother of ephemera hesitated to speak. Guan perceived her thoughts and softly said, "Don't worry, the 3,000 great worlds will be fine. In the future, cultivators from the celestial spirit great world will still ascend here, and perhaps you may even see those disciples who choose to stay behind." Upon hearing this, the ghost mother of ephemera's face showed expectation. Many disciples she knew she could no longer see. Occasionally she felt lost about this. She respected those disciples' choices but also felt regret. Now, hearing Guan's words made the ghost mother of ephemera suddenly realize. It turns out they did not leave. They went to the destination everyone needs to reach, waiting for old friends to arrive at the endpoint. Thinking this way, the ghost mother of ephemera was inwardly cautious. Those disciples remaining in the celestial spirit great world would never have imagined this. After countless years, there will certainly be a huge disparity between them and the Wuxia disciples who chose to follow Guan. Indeed, only by following the master is the most correct choice. At first, she thought the master was merely tired and wanted a change of place, but now, thinking about it, for a great power cultivator like the master, any decision made must have deep intentions. Guan heard the ghost mother of ephemera's inner thoughts and found it amusing but did not expose them. He came to central heaven simply because he found it could be more interesting. Cultivation is the same everywhere, but observing the development and growth of a great world makes life interesting, and this process can enhance the understanding of the great Tao, not only for him but also for other disciples. The ghost mother of ephemera ceased speaking and began imagining the immortal demon battle. This decisive battle lasted a long time, and the pressure transmitting to central heaven persistently changed, allowing Wuxia disciples to feel the intensity of this fight. Days later, that pressure reached an exceedingly terrifying height, shaking the land of central heaven and startling the Wuxia disciples. What kind of realm is this? What realm are both sides of the battle at this moment? Under the night sky, in the courtyard, Shenzhen sat meditatively before the artifact refining cauldron, looking at Guan and curiously asked. She originally had her own courtyard but couldn't get used to it, and later found an opportunity to move back, bragging that it was better for enlightenment here. Guan was reading a book written by a disciple, examining with a scrutinizing and critical mindset. Very high, very high. Guan answered casually. The realm of primordial profound venerable immortal couldn't yet be disclosed to Shenzhen and the disciples, because it was too far from them. Moreover, one side was even higher than the primordial profound venerable immortal. Shenzhen raised her eyebrows and asked, "Very high? So, do I have a chance to reach it?" Following Guan in cultivation for many years had already changed her mindset, thinking she could always break through without limit. But tonight's pressure made her waver, uncertain about how long she needed to cultivate to reach it. This powerful pressure was transmuting from the 3,000 great worlds, making it hard to imagine what it would be like to be in it. No. Gu An's clear answer stunned Shenzhen, leaving her with no interest, plunging the courtyard into silence. He was not deliberately discouraging Shenzhen. This was the reality. Saint Guan can help those around him become stronger, far exceeding their limits, but cannot make others infinitely stronger. Not to mention the primordial profound venerable immortal, even the Tao extreme Daoyuo immortal depends on one's own fortune, and neither could achieve it by relying on others through the Xianqi primordial immortal. The roads beyond the immortal Tao are different, following others' footsteps is not viable. This is why Guan guides his disciples toward enlightenment instead of having them focus solely on his Taoist technique. At night, in the endless mountains and forests, the Wuxia disciples could not settle down to cultivate. They gathered together, discussing this mysterious battle, reminiscing about the past. They also appreciated Guan knowing what coming to Central Heaven meant. After countless years, they will be beings of high seniority compared to all living beings of heaven and earth. Just the thought made them excited. They are all anticipating Central Heaven's future. Night passed. Early the next day, the pressure from the 3,000 great worlds vanished, and the world returned to peace. The mundane life at the Taoist field of the beginningless continued. Until 10 years later, a startling commotion came from afar, waking all the Wuxia disciples. Guan was playing chess with Fairy Yaoxian. The two sat within a bamboo forest, enjoying the gentle breeze. Fairy Yaoxian turned her head, frowned, and said, "What kind of presence is this? Even the rules of heaven and earth are converging toward it." Guan played a piece and replied with a smile, "The first life form of Central Heaven is about to be born. He is born of the creation of heaven and earth, the celestial Tao destiny. His aptitudes are beyond your imagination. He will be the mythic starting point of Central Heaven. Perhaps in many years to come, he will come to us at the beginningless." These words intrigued Fairy Yaoxian. She looked at Guan and asked, "Central Heaven's significance to the heavenly Tao is unusual. Are you not afraid of being watched by the celestial court by bringing us here in advance?" She always believed Guan was the Emperor of Eternal Life, although Guan didn't acknowledge it, so she didn't expose him. She was no longer obsessed with past affections with the Emperor of Eternal Life and was more concerned about her own cultivation and her son's, Sin's, growth. In her heart, this is the best life now, she desires nothing else. Guan dared not show himself as the Emperor of Eternal Life and remains hidden, evidently wary of the heavenly court immortals. The Emperor of Eternal Life was once pursued by immortal gods. This life, Guan has contended with the immortal gods multiple times, which is one reason she wants to become stronger. Since arriving in Central Heaven, she's been puzzled, not understanding what Guan aims to do. As for Guan's rhetoric, she equally didn't believe it could merely be about feeling bored and wanting a change of living environment. Guan answered, "Don't worry, we won't be discovered. This dojo is different from the one in the celestial spirit great world, and before this world is filled with life, I won't let disciples venture outside." Although he no longer feared the celestial court, he didn't want to publicize it to avoid inflating his disciples' egos. Of course, he also feared becoming inflated himself. Upon hearing this, Fairy Yaoxian nodded, temporarily choosing to trust Guan. At that moment, turbulent thunderclouds churned in the sky, the world swiftly darkened, and terrifying heavenly might enveloped all of Central Heaven. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 899. The ancestral masters' grace. The birth of the first living being in Central Heaven caused great heavenly anomalies, lasting a full 30 years. During those 30 years, the world was filled with raging winds, sometimes torrential rain and sometimes blistering sun. The Wuxia disciples were not affected within the dojo, though they would discuss the anomalies outside. Guan's words spread, letting all disciples know that these anomalies were brought about by the birth of a living being. The anomalies were so earth-shattering, it was hard to imagine how powerful this being would be after birth. Those with high cultivation levels would extend their divine sense, seeking the trace of this being, but unfortunately Central Heaven was too distant, and they couldn't detect anything. On the other side, the 3,000 great worlds ushered in peace, with each realm's celestial Tao light layer bestowing creation, enhancing the spiritual energy of every realm, and giving birth to more heavenly materials and earthly treasures. All beings could sense the advent of a new atmosphere. To make up for the 3,000 great worlds, the celestial court granted many immortal positions, allowing beings who contributed to the heavenly Tao to ascend to immortality, leading to a surge of ascensions in all realms. After confirming the departure of Ancestor Master Wuxia, all sects in the celestial spirit great world began to stir, including the Hegemon, the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance harbored many ambitious individuals, but the alliance hierarchs always considered Ancestor Master Wuxia in matters of the world. Now that Ancestor Master Wuxia has departed, no one can restrain the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance anymore. If the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance becomes more domineering, the profits will greatly increase. Though the 3,000 great worlds are peaceful, the earliest peaceful celestial spirit great world is undercurrents surging. Guan no longer cares about the cause and effect of the celestial spirit great world. Seeing it endure was enough for him, and he began to enjoy life in central heaven. After the heavenly anomalies dissipated, Guan conducted a Tao teaching session. Over 2 million disciples gathered atop a great mountain. Before the session he spoke of his vision for the future. Wuxia will no longer accept disciples in the future. He hopes the disciples will find a mortal identity, disguise themselves as mortals to establish themselves in central heaven. It's also a test for the disciples. If discovered by central heaven beings, they must leave Taisha. Once central heaven prospers they may leave voluntarily, but they will no longer belong to Wuxia. This intrigued the disciples. They lacked nothing but cultivation goals, and if there were an interesting rule it would be quite good. After addressing this matter, Guan began his Tao teaching. This time he taught for 1,000 years. During this millennium, there were several heavenly anomalies, each celebrating the birth of beings. After the Tao teaching ended, Guan began harvesting mature medicinal herbs. His medicine garden and fields only grew immortal products now, which had long growth cycles but brought great longevity. His annual lifespan income averaged 5 billion years. Ghost Mother of Ephemera followed him as usual, acting as his assistant. Boom! A massive sound came from afar, making the Ghost Mother of Ephemera frown and look over. "Is there a battle outside the dojo?" the Ghost Mother of Ephemera asked in surprise. "When there are more beings, conflict is inevitable." Guan casually replied, making the Ghost Mother of Ephemera even more puzzled. She asked curiously, "Aren't there only 7 beings born? The world is vast, there's no need to start fighting so soon, is there?" Guan smiled. "The first batch of beings in central heaven is different from what you imagine. Their spiritual intelligence is high but they aren't so friendly. They will find ways to get along in these struggles and comprehend the so-called heavenly Tao." "The heavenly Tao, huh?" The Ghost Mother of Ephemera pondered, feeling as though she was being led to a broader perspective, observing all beings and world affairs from an elevated angle. She recalled Guan's Tao teaching which discussed the great Tao itself, not any specific Tao. He seemed to be guiding them to pursue the great Tao they desired. At this thought, she became unprecedentedly curious about the world's future development. She wanted to see what outcomes those 7 beings would have and how this world would develop, wondering if it would be different from the celestial spirit great world. In the years that followed, new life continued to be born, and battles persisted, arousing the curiosity of the Wuxia disciples. Judging by the commotion of the battles, those beings were quite strong, having such power soon after birth, making them feel the pressure from central heaven's beings. Above the 3,000 great worlds in the Great World Divine Palace, Shenyuan Human Venerable sat on the dragon throne, eyes closed, right hand resting on the armrest, fingers tapping lightly, clearly unsettled. When footsteps finally sounded, he opened his eyes immediately. He saw Sichuan Old Immortal appear out of thin air in the hall, and Shenyuan Human Venerable stared at him intently, clearly very tense. Sichuan Old Immortal stepped in front of the dais. Hesitating for a moment, he said, "Your Highness, Ancestor Master Wuxia has indeed left, taking a group of disciples with him. No one knows where he has gone." Hearing this, Shenyuan Human Venerable's face turned extremely ugly. Since the struggle for the Son of Heaven, he had regarded Ancestor Master Wuxia as his support. When he was imprisoned by Heavenly Emperor Taihao, he heard Ancestor Master Wuxia had repelled the immortal god's army, which deeply moved him, and Ancestor Master Wuxia's status in his heart soared rapidly. After that, Heavenly Emperor Taihao personally went to capture Ancestor Master Wuxia. Before leaving, he threatened him, leaving him in utter despair. However, he never expected Heavenly Emperor Taihao would return in defeat. Following that, the celestial court fell into internal strife, and he could clearly feel many forces releasing goodwill toward him, wanting to rescue him. The celestial court's inability to swiftly end the immortal demon war was due to internal concerns. The failure of Heavenly Emperor Taihao left him mired in difficulties. Even when Shenyuan Human Venerable was under house arrest, he could sense his plight. All changes in the celestial court began with ancestor Master Wuxia, earning Shenyuan Human Venerable immense respect for him, surpassing even the celestial emperor's status in his heart. Yet ancestor Master Wuxia had left. Shenyuan Human Venerable slowly leaned back in his chair, losing all his sharpness. Many of his ambitions dissipated with ancestor Master Wuxi's departure. Sichuan Old Immortal looked at Shenyuan Human Venerable with eyes full of sympathy and comforted him. "Your Highness, no matter what, you've escaped one calamity and that's already a blessing. You should know, once His Majesty shows favoritism, any effort becomes futile. In this calamity the real loser is not you but Heavenly Emperor Taihao." In his final words he was full of emotion. Who would have thought Emperor Taihao would emerge and become an equal rival to Heavenly Emperor Taihao? Although Heavenly Emperor Taihao had not yet been stripped of power, all immortal gods could sense destiny leaning toward Emperor Taihao. Many immortal gods had already rushed to Central Heaven to lay plans, an act also seen as showing goodwill to Emperor Taihao. Hearing this, Shenyuan Human Venerable showed a bitter smile and said, "Indeed, I am already fortunate, even my father has appeared. There's truly no need for the Ancestor Master to wade into these murky waters again, yet even though he's gone, he'll always remember his kindness. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 900. The future immortal Sichuan Old Immortal heard Shenyuan Human Venerable's words and couldn't help but nod. He comforted, "The ancestor is merely departing, and there will certainly be a day of reunion. Only by staying alive, can your Highness see him again." Shenyuan Human Venerable showed a smile on his face, reflecting, "Indeed, only by living on there are countless hopes. Your Highness, today the Emperor conferred the positions of 49 immortal monarchs for Central Heaven. This is a strong signal. The rise of Emperor Taihao is unstoppable. Do you need me to congratulate him on your behalf?" Sichuan Old Immortal regained his composure and asked seriously. "The Dark Heavenly Court was severely damaged and will not return for a long time in the future. Now, their attention has to return to the Celestial Court internally. To the immortal gods, having no desires or needs poses no danger. However, many immortal gods who serve the Son of Heaven have desires, and once entangled in the struggle for the Son of Heaven, it is hard to extricate oneself. Even the sons of heaven are such, as no son of heaven is absolutely secure. Even if one does not want to fight, it may be beyond one's control." Shenyuan Human Venerable frowned and snorted coldly, "What Taihao? He's actually named after my father's mundane name. It's favoritism indeed. How many years has he been the Son of Heaven?" He had seen many sons of heaven favored by his father. He himself had received such favor, but he had never seen one as favored as Emperor Taihao. The Celestial Emperor gave the name to Emperor Taihao and created a heavenly Tao center for him. Now he is openly establishing immortal positions for him. How can Shenyuan Human Venerable, also a son of heaven, not be jealous? Sichuan Old Immortal sighed and said, "From the moment he received the name Taihao, we should have understood that. Perhaps this is also the reason the Supreme forced the Emperor's hand." Shenyuan Human Venerable fell silent. Sichuan Old Immortal also said no more. They all needed to think carefully about how to act in the future. Shenyuan Human Venerable recalled the only time he saw Emperor Taihao. Back then, Emperor Taihao was still a child, so naive. He never expected that the child at that time could surpass all sons of heaven and reach for that supreme power which no one dared touch. The Celestial Emperor. There are more and more rumors within the Celestial Court now, saying that the Celestial Emperor wants to abdicate. Shenyuan Human Venerable thought of this and felt an overwhelming pressure, his pride crumbling. Perhaps he truly should make amends with Emperor Taihao? This thought once emerged, grew wildly like weeds, making it impossible for him to dispel. The internal struggles of the Celestial Court and the surges of the Celestial Spirit Great World did not catch Guan's attention because he had already foreseen the results of these matters. Time flew by. It had been millions of years, and millions of years later, the Celestial Spirit Great World erupted in conflict, with numerous sects and imperial dynasties besieging the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance. Fortunately, the presence of immortal gods prevented disaster from reaching the lower levels of the human world. The current Central Heaven has already birthed many living beings, most of whom are in the state of demons, not humans. At this stage, the beings of Central Heaven have no concept of race, almost all fighting for survival. This year, early summer. In the forest, a flaming red crow flew swiftly, startling a cascade of falling leaves. It flew to the edge of the woods and landed on a tree trunk, tilting its head to look ahead. Outside the forest was a large lake, and by the lake 3 people were fishing: Guan, Xiaolan, and an Xin. This place was outside the dojo, not far from it. Rarely invited by Guan for an outing, Xiaolan and an Xin were both delighted. During the fishing process, the 2 women talked about the past, chatting about their days in the Supreme Sect. For Xiaolan, that was already several lifetimes ago. An Xin also felt it was distant, sometimes like a dream. Guan put down his fishing rod and raised his right hand, with a fruit appearing in his palm, exuding a rich floral fragrance. The flaming red crow hesitated for a moment, then flew like an arrow, quickly snatching the fruit from his hand. Xiaolan and an Xin looked up, both a bit surprised. "Why is this bird's aura so weak?" Xiaolan asked curiously. In Central Heaven, all living beings capable of moving are born with the creation of heaven and earth, containing terrifying power from the moment they have consciousness. Their movements are earth-shattering, yet this flaming red crow, though quick, is too weak compared to those beings, as if it came from the celestial spirit great world. An Xin activated the immortal emperor's eye, carefully observing the flaming red crow, and exclaimed, "This bird can actually conceal its cultivation level and aura." Xiaolan couldn't help but glance at her, looking at her purple pupils, feeling secretly amazed. What kind of eyes are these? The Wuxia disciples, although all trained by Guan, received different inheritances. She couldn't bring herself to ask an Xin about her secret skill, just like she wouldn't reveal all her Taoist techniques to others. Guan smiled and waved toward the flaming red crow circling over the lake, but unfortunately the bird was unmoved, maintaining a safe distance. "Master, what realm is it?" An Xin turned to look at Guan, curiously asking. She could only sense the strong power hidden within the flaming red crow, not its specific cultivation level. Guan responded, "It has reached the pinnacle of the innate golden immortal realm. Given time, it will break through sooner or later." Upon this remark, the 2 women were both surprised. Even to this day, among the Wuxia disciples, the highest cultivation level is only innate golden immortal, yet this bird's cultivation level is higher than theirs? An Xin further asked, "Will it become a great fortune seeker in Central Heaven and play a very important role?" Guan smiled and said, "Indeed, it will establish the demon race and become the ancestor of 10,000 beasts, also introducing the concept of race to all beings. Long after, it will even ascend to immortality." Will ascend to immortality. The 2 women once again looked at the flaming red crow, their feelings completely different. This feeling was strange, even indescribable. "If that's the case, will its encounter with us cause trouble?" Xiaolan frowned and asked. Guan laughed, "Rest assured, once it leaves here it will forget us. Its cultivation level is not sufficient to remember my cause and effect." This cultivation level? The 2 were stunned by the boldness in his words. Upon reflection, it seemed normal. Guan dared to come to the Heavenly Tao Center, and so far no immortal gods have discovered him. His cultivation level must far exceed most immortal gods. Then, Guan took out another fruit and placed it on a large stone in front of him, waiting for the flaming red crow to fly over. After a while, the bird couldn't resist its instincts and flew over. This time, although its claws grasped the fruit, it couldn't lift it, making it very anxious. Guan raised his hand, pressing down on its head, calming it instantly, no longer struggling. After he released it, the flaming red crow looked up at them, tilting its head, its eyes clear as jewels. Its size was like a chicken, slender and small in stature, yet overall very majestic, inspiring affection from the 2 women. Xiaolan gazed at it and asked, "Senior brother, you surely know its future, won't you tell us about it?" Guan smiled slightly and said, "Its story is quite fascinating, and it's not something that can be shared quickly. It might take until tomorrow to finish. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 901. The Pinnacle of the Immortal Tao. The gentle breeze caressed the surface of the lake, as Xiaolan and an Xin listened to Guan narrate the future of the fire-red crow. The fire-red crow was one of the earliest beings in the world, with unparalleled talent and immense destiny, continually encountering Fuyuan. After its transformation, it named itself Fangqiu. Fangqiu traveled the world, constantly advancing his cultivation level. Later, when a great power established the demon race, he went there, breaking through numerous demon crowds to become one of the 7 emperors of the demon race. His name shook the world. Thereafter, he was always a figure of influence in Central Heaven, until he ascended to immortality, and only then did the human world begin to forget him. Guan recounted his life experience briefly, yet even in this brevity, it sparked boundless imagination in the two young women, Xiaolan and an Xan. They looked at the fire-red crow, pecking at spirit fruit in front of Guan, utterly unable to associate it with the future giant of the demon race. An Xan curiously asked, "Master, how high will its future achievements reach?" Guan looked at the fire-red crow and said, "The peak of the immortal Tao. The peak of the immortal Tao." Their expressions shook. They understood Guan was not referring to the immortal Tao peak of the celestial spirit great world, but rather the peak of the immortal Tao within the scope of the heavenly Tao, a realm beyond their current imagination. "Then have you already stood at the peak of the immortal Tao?" Curious Xiaolan asked. To be able to see the destiny of the immortal Tao peak, Guan's cultivation level must be so high. Guan smiled without a word. Since she had guessed, there was no need for him to say more. He had indeed already stood at the peak of the immortal Tao, only higher than the peak. He continued telling the story of the fire-red crow. After eating, the fire-red crow came close, starting to rub its head against his knee. Even though the fire-red crow couldn't speak human words, it too had spiritual intelligence, able to sense that this person harbored no ill intentions towards it. Guan reached out and petted its head. Indeed, its feathers were very smooth and felt comfortable to touch. After chatting for an hour, Guan felt it was time and lifted his right hand, tossing the fire-red crow into the air. The bird circled in the sky several times before flying away. Xiaolan sighed, "This little guy is really intelligent and it looks nice too. I see you like it quite a bit, why not adopt it and cultivate it yourself? Its future achievements would certainly be even greater." An Xian also looked at Guan, having a good impression of the fire-red crow. Guan stood up, stretched lazily and said with a smile, "The great Tao is boundless and those with exceptional talent are numerous. I can't keep everyone I encounter. Besides, different life experiences lead to becoming different people." He raised his hand to store the fishing rod into his sleeve, then slung the fish basket over his back and walked along the lakeside. Xiaolan and an Xan hurriedly got up, following behind him. "Will it really not remember you? Or recall today's events?" Xiaolan asked curiously. "There will be this passage of memory, but it won't know where exactly, like a childhood dream. As for me, its dream doesn't reflect me." Guan answered while moving forward, pausing before continuing, "In the future, such things will continue to happen. There will always be beings approaching Wuxia, and you will witness those with even greater talent than it. This is my assessment for Wuxia disciples. Concealing one's cultivation level from such exceptionally talented beings is not an easy task." He set this requirement for the disciples purely on a whim, using it as an excuse to send them off. The number of disciples following him was indeed too many, necessitating a reduction by 90%. Guan's words prompted Xiaolan to endless contemplation. What would the future of Central Heaven be like? During the long years, Wuxia disciples would, besides cultivation, go to the edge of the mountains to observe the vast world's all living beings. Every time they emerged from seclusion, they could feel tremendous changes in the world outside their dojo, letting them understand what it meant for things to change rapidly. Each year, powerful beings were born, causing wonders in heaven and earth, allowing all Wuxia disciples to feel the underlying strength of Central Heaven. They harbored no arrogance in their hearts, only a sense of urgency, fearing being surpassed. With more and more beings, the realm of the immortal Tao in the world grew higher and higher, inevitably leading to cause and effect. Beings began to band together, especially those capable of reproduction, who realized the importance of unity earlier, making the struggles in Central Heaven grow ever fiercer. While local beings contested, immortal gods and outer heaven great powers continued to descend. They landed in Central Heaven human world, spreading the immortal Tao everywhere, establishing benevolent ties for their respective forces, advancing Central Heaven's development. The legend of Central Heaven spread through the 3,000 great worlds, more and more cultivators becoming aware of Central Heaven, a place above the 3,000 great worlds, an immortal realm that captivated the hearts. Celestial Spirit Great World. In the early autumn of this year, at the edge of the Nine-Spirit continent, where waves crashed against the shore, two figures stood on a reef, gazing silently at the prosperity within the continent. It was Li Ya and his disciple Li Xianyu. Today's Nine-Spirit continent was no longer shrouded in spirit mist and had begun interacting with the mundane world. Meanwhile, the 10,000 Realms Gate created by Guan still stood and even became a crucial bargaining chip in the Nine-Spirit dynasty's dealings with the outside world. Li Xianyu turned his head to look at his master, breaking the silence. Ancestor Master Wuxia has been gone for millions of years, and no one knows where he went. After he left, Wuxia quickly dissolved, either lured by other sects or established their own sects or dynasties. In short, Wuxia no longer exists in the world. Li Ya's face was expressionless, but his heart was filled with a sense of bitterness. He had come back specifically to boast about his achievements to Guan. Now his name was known across the 3,000 great worlds. He not only achieved innate golden immortal but also found the sorcery to reach a higher realm. However, Guan was no longer there. He didn't know where to find Guan, and his heart felt a deep sense of loss. At this moment he even felt a bit bewildered, wondering if the memories of Guan were merely his fantasies. Was there really such a great power that would support him without expecting anything in return and even be willing to be his junior brother? The more Li Ya thought, the more his heart ached. Having endured the immortal demon catastrophe, his Tao heart became more steadfast. But facing Guan's disappearance, he could no longer maintain his firmness and strength. Li Xianyu could see that Li Ya's mood was bad and lamented, "Master, if there's anyone to blame, it's you. Master Gu invited you many times and you always refused. He couldn't have stayed until you came back, and besides, during your absence, the celestial spirit great world faced suppression from the heavenly court immortals, which might have been the reason for Master Gus's departure." Upon hearing this, Li Ya looked up, his gaze deep, whispering to himself, "The celestial court?" Li Xianyu felt a pang of anxiety, saying, "Please don't do anything reckless. You can't possibly be a match for the heavenly court immortals." Li Ya gave him a sidelong glance, retorting in annoyance, "You speak as if your master were a fool. Isn't that the case?" Li Xianyu mumbled to himself. Li Ya turned and flew towards the sky. Li Xianyu hurriedly followed, asking curiously, "Master, where are you going next?" "I'll wander my homeland for a while, then head to Central Heaven. They say Central Heaven will become the center of the heavenly Tao. I want to pursue an immortal position there. Once I'm in the celestial court, maybe I can assist junior brother Gu." Li Ya answered calmly. He knew clearly that the celestial court was unassailable. Only by joining it and using his strength to change the celestial court was the feasible way. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 902, Great Tao Variables. In the blink of an eye, 50 million years have passed since Guan and the others encountered the fire-red crow. 50 million years later, among Central Heaven, various races have emerged, dominating different regions, giving birth to civilizations, though the concept of demons has not yet formed. Because many immortal gods and outer heaven great powers have preached the Tao, a trend of pursuing immortal cultivation has arisen in the world. The number of living beings between heaven and earth is increasing, and inevitably some approach the Taoist field of the beginningless, but with Guan's Tao intent present, they wander as if in a maze, turning back after circling around, never entering the internal area of the Taoist field of the beginningless. Many disciples stand on the edge of the mountain range and can see those approaching beings. Most of the early beings are enormous in size, resembling the mythical fierce beasts of ancient myths. Some disciples even sketch the creatures they've seen, creating illustrated albums that circulate among disciples. The current Taoist field of the beginningless is vast, with 2 million disciples living here, forming small circles, resembling an imperial dynasty. Disciples also begin to search for suitable mortal identities, because one day the barriers of the beginningless will lift, and beings will come intruding. Given the prowess of the beings of Central Heaven, how will they disguise themselves as mortal spirits? This question has become a perplexing issue for all Wuxia disciples. They fear being expelled from the beginningless. No one doubts that the ancestor is merely frightening them. If the ancestor says such words, he will surely follow through. Although the second-generation disciples are not afraid, they also don't want to be outdone. If they expose their cultivation levels before the juniors, it would be an embarrassment to Guan. At least that's what they think, and they also communicate privately about it. The scorching sun hangs high, and Guan lies asleep on a tree, with a large leaf covering his face. He is undergoing the holy tribulation, experiencing another lifetime, this time in the future of Central Heaven. As this lifetime ends, a slight dissatisfaction crosses his lips. Although it's a different world, the experiences don't seem much different. Guan silently muses, wanting to experience a drastically different life to comprehend the holy Tao. He moves the leaf from his face, revealing an eye, and his gaze travels through the gaps in the leaves above, where he sees someone ascending. Though there were outer heaven visitors before, they had always come with the celestial court's consent, bearing missions. Ascending, however, is due to sufficient realm and merits, breaking the restrictions of heaven and earth, guided by celestial destiny, beyond the celestial court's control. When the celestial emperor granted Sangtian this authority, it became the vitality of all beings. Even if the celestial emperor harbors ambition, within the limited lifespan of beings, it is a significant opportunity for them. Central heaven possesses the potential to cultivate existences surpassing immortal gods. The celestial emperor not only hopes central heaven can become a breeding ground for youthful forces for the celestial court, but also intends for central heaven to be a check on the celestial court. The stronger the celestial court is, it doesn't mean the heavenly Tao is equally strong. The strength of the heavenly Tao depends on the development of all beings, yet human hearts are unpredictable and the hearts of immortals are as deep as the abyss. In their own world, invincible and dominant, ascending to central heaven, contending for great destiny, then ascending to immortality, this will be the future path for cultivators. Guan sees some of his old acquaintances will also ascend to central heaven, leading their own splendid lives. Suddenly an idea occurs to him. He has experienced many lifetimes but never the life of an immortal god. What would it feel like to be a heavenly court immortal god? This thought quickly flashes in his mind. Beyond the heavenly court immortal gods, there are also ghost gods, human world demons, and numerous other identities he has not experienced. Guan turns his gaze to Zhang Buku. Zhang Buku is hiding in the underworld cultivating. The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable and 9 Nether Emperor have been exterminated by the Celestial Emperor, leaving only a sliver of remnant souls. Restoring them would take countless years, and Zhang Buku and Suyu have temporarily gained freedom. They cultivate in the 9 Netherworld Death Realm, rapidly increasing their cultivation levels, especially Zhang Buku. In the future, Zhang Buku would ascend to central heaven, sweeping the world with his Hongmeng golden body. Unfortunately, he resists ascending to immortality, eventually clashing with the celestial court until being subdued by them. Guan is unconcerned about such an outcome. He can change it. However, seeing Zhang Buku cultivate while divinely traveling reincarnation to find the cause and effect of his father, fills him with comfort. In over 200 million years, Zhang Buku is no longer the pure youth he once was. He bears tremendous karmic burdens and has established immense merits. Yet, he maintains his original intent of searching for his father, which is what moves Guan the most. Senior brother, in your myriad lifetimes, this life may not be deeply etched in your heart, but he constantly thinks of you. If you knew that, what would you feel? Guan silently contemplates. With his cultivation level, he can easily trace Zhang Chunkius' reincarnation. Zhang Chuanxiu has already reincarnated many times. With Guan's assistance, his destiny strengthens with each life, currently a renowned prodigy in a great thousand world, spirited and lively. In this life, Zhang Chuanxiu lives freely, and Guan has no reason to have him bear the past lives' cause and effect again, much less renew the father-son bond with Zhang Buku. To him it is not favorable. Zhang Buku's obsession should be pursued by himself. Guan flips down from the tree, landing on the grass, and walks towards the depths of the forest. After 3 steps, his surroundings suddenly change. He arrives in a valley full of green grass and tree vines, where sunlight sheds an enchanted light across the valley. Crossing the grassy land, his robe flutters, and with the immortal king crown under his mane swaying, his gaze fixes on the depths of the valley. Deep in the valley lies a small, shallow lake with a faint green hue, and at the center stands a gigantic egg, 3 zhang high. The eggshell is semi-transparent, interspersed with red veins resembling meridians, within which a human-like figure is curled up. Reaching the lake, he examines this giant egg intently, his eyes filled with curiosity. This giant egg, unlike other beings birthed from celestial destiny, is formed from the source of the great Tao. Though the heavenly Tao is potent, standing upon the great Tao, it will always be infiltrated by the great Tao, and even the high and mighty heavenly court immortal gods cannot comprehend all worldly causes and effects, because there are great Tao opportunities. Just like Guan able to grow within the heavenly Tao. Similarly, this giant egg doesn't belong to the heavenly Tao, yet it can also grow. The reason Guan has noticed it is because his holy tribulation in the future encountered the being gestating from this egg, sparking his interest, leading to his pursuit. Only after sweeping central heaven several times with his sacred will did he determine its location. This valley lacks powerful innate restrictions, just that the aura of this egg merges seamlessly with the surroundings, rendering it unremarkable. Even from a close distance, he cannot discern the ultimate fate of the giant egg, seeing it reaching the perfect realm of integration into the supreme emperor of ultimate merging Tao. He sees it challenging celestial gods. He even sees the heavenly Tao shattering because of it. Yet, that future is so distant, a time when an Xian, Liya, and Ji Xiaoyu are already mighty figures of renown within the heavenly Tao, capable of discussing the Tao with the celestial Tao Venerable. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 903. Destined to become a saint. The valley was serene with a gentle breeze blowing, causing slight ripples on the small lake beneath the giant egg. Guwen gazed at the giant egg, calculating its future. Such a destiny, no matter how one looks at it, this creature has the hope of surpassing the Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao, in other words, to become a saint. Before he becomes a saint, seeing the celestial emperor, seeing the heavenly Tao, made it feel as if sainthood was unattainable, hard to achieve. Now, seeing the destiny of the giant egg, it felt absurd. Is it possible that someone is really destined to become a saint from birth? Reflecting on the difference between immortals and mortals, mortals cannot comprehend the feeling of being an immortal spirit from birth. Yet thinking again, Guwen felt becoming a saint isn't that simple. The creature within the egg might have the potential to become a saint, but sainthood is not achieved by talent alone. Just like now, he has already detected the existence of this egg. If he acted now, destroyed this egg, all its causal destiny would dissipate like smoke. The future power of this egg cannot intervene with him acting now, which at least shows that its future does not extend as far as his. However, Guwen was not bloodthirsty. Even for the sake of extending life, he only killed those heavily laden with karmic debt. Although Guwen was amazed by the egg's future, he had no intention of destroying it. He simply couldn't see a promising younger generation and think of obliteration. Without grievances or enmity, why do so? Moreover, precisely because there exist other beings with stronger talents, he could ascertain that he still has a long way to go. Guwen watched for a while, prepared to leave, when suddenly, his pupils contracted, gaze fixed back on the giant egg. He saw that the future of the giant egg was changing. A line of destiny was growing, swallowing other lines of destiny. Guwen actually saw a Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao. This Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao, though not as powerful as the Celestial Emperor, yet he was truly a Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao and would become the calamity of the giant egg. Following the destiny of this Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao, Guwen discovered he did not originate from the heavenly Tao but from the Eternal. The Eternal, situated within chaos, has a lineage known as the Eternal Tao Extreme, which frequently sends powerful beings to the heavenly Tao to seize those with great destiny. Previously even Lu Qiuxian was captured. After becoming a saint, Guwen also observed the Eternal, whose foundations are indeed strong, nearly catching up with the heavenly Tao, but the Eternal Lord is not more powerful than the Celestial Emperor, thus the Eternal does not dare to confront the heavenly Tao head-on for now. Within chaos exist many such destiny lineages. Many of the founders hail from the same era as the Celestial Emperor and were once defeated by him. Only the heavenly Tao can freely showcase its destiny and strength within chaos, whereas other lineages hide deep within space, fearing discovery by others. Chaos appears desolate, seemingly without forces or survival rules, yet actually hides many grand and magnificent worlds in the shadows. This Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao from the Eternal is not the ancestor of the Eternal. He is the second within the Eternal to reach this realm, also from the future. Realizing the threat of the giant egg, he wants to cross time to annihilate it. Guwen hesitated for a moment but eventually used his Tao intent to help conceal the egg's cause and effect. In a sense, this is a great providence granted by the great Tao to the heavenly Tao. In the future, this egg will also merge into the heavenly Tao, cultivating the immortal Tao techniques under it. Its growth will strengthen the heavenly Tao. Guwen in this life was born within the heavenly Tao. Even if the celestial court is somewhat flawed, he still hopes for the heavenly Tao to become better. The stronger the heavenly Tao, the more Fuyuan it gives back to all beings. As Guwen's Tao intent enveloped the giant egg, its fate changed once again. In an incredibly distant future, the Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao was shocked, no longer daring to cross time, while also realizing the depth of the heavenly Tao. Henceforth, he was even more vigilant and cautious toward the heavenly Tao. In just a fleeting moment, Guwen saw the change in the Supreme Emperor of ultimate merging Tao. Time also has a long river, with Guwen looking from one end to the other from an overlooking perspective. After becoming a saint, he transcended the past, present, and future, able to go anywhere. As long as he doesn't wish to, he won't leave any cause and effect nor be rejected. He simply chose to stay here. As of now, he undoubtedly qualifies as an immortal existence. Lifespan only serves to undergo evolution and enhance his cultivation level. Even if he exhausted his lifespan, he could still live on, only without lifespan he couldn't engage in lifespan evolution, nor reach into the future to let his lifespan number increase. In this light, the lifespan consumed by lifespan evolution might hold a deeper significance, manifesting another form of power's presence. Guwen looked at the giant egg with a smile on his face. He turned and left, soon disappearing as if never having appeared. The seasons cycled, the valley tinted yellow with autumn colors, then covered by white snow, until the winter snow melted. Thus, a whole cycle of the year passed. Unsure how many years had passed. This year in spring Guwen returned. He approached the lakeside, gazing at the giant egg. Now the surface of the egg had numerous cracks, and the creature inside seemed to be breaking out. Under Guwen's gaze, wisps of white steam emerged from the crevices of the egg. An aura surpassing the heaven-balancing golden immortal emanated from it. Many are born as innate golden immortals, yet currently in central heaven, no existence has been born as a heaven-balancing golden immortal. And the creature inside this egg is set to shatter that historical limit, as upon its birth, it will be a Taiching golden immortal. Absorbing the essence of the sun and moon over the years, the egg has become a being of the heavenly Tao, its great Tao vitality hidden deep within its soul, making it difficult even for heavenly court immortals to detect. Once it hatches, it will trigger phenomena that astound heaven and earth, causing the heavenly Tao to announce its birth. Guwen raised his hand, isolating the land, preventing the attention of all beings in heaven and earth from falling upon the creature inside the giant egg. Now central heaven thrives with immortal spirits and fierce beasts. If he didn't intervene, even a creature with Taiching golden immortals cultivation would suffer hardship until bowing to a great power from outer heaven to gain protection. Being destined to become a saint shouldn't have to live so miserably. Rarely did Guwen feel an appreciation for talent, deciding to lend a hand, repaying central heaven. If its early life encounters fewer tribulations, its sense of belonging to central heaven will be stronger. Guwen, along with his disciples, had come to central heaven and felt he should give back as a gesture of reciprocity. Crack. The giant egg emitted a sound, the cracks on its shell rapidly multiplying, the figure inside slowly stretching its body. Rolling thunderclouds surged, covering the celestial vault above the valley. The thunder rumbling suppressed as if celestial gods were roaring, gusty winds whipped up, stirring all the vegetation within the valley, and waves rippled across the lake below the giant egg. A formidable aura belonging to the Taiching golden immortal erupted from within the giant egg. Accompanying the creature inside fully stretching its body, the giant egg suddenly exploded, its shattered shell scattering like fragments of crystal, some skimming past Guwen's cheek, reflecting his handsome visage. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 904. Guwen and Hong Guwen's eyes didn't blink as he calmly stared at the small lake ahead. After the eggshell shattered, a graceful figure appeared on the lake's surface. It was a girl who looked about 16 or 17 years old, her long hair reaching her calves. Her skin was as white as snow, with delicate features perfectly harmonious, yet her expression remained cold. Her feet submerged in the lake water, she slowly turned around and looked at Guwen, her gaze unchanging. Guwen nodded slightly. To be able to undergo transformation right after being born, her talent far surpassed the first batch of beings in central heaven. The human form is the most suitable for cultivating the Tao, containing the true essence of the universe's great Tao. For this reason the human race has a short lifespan, because they already possess the sought-after form for cultivating the Tao. After several eras, when the demon race rises, there will be immortal gods descending to create the human race, to counterbalance the demon race, and at the same time, use the demon race to help the human race rise quickly. The original human race was created by the Celestial Emperor, establishing the status of the human race, destined to become the most important race in the heavenly Tao. Of course, besides the heavenly Tao in chaos, many worlds have humans. The birth of humans itself is the insight cultivators gain while pursuing the great Tao. Inevitably, the initial creations are based on oneself, creating a race that resembles oneself. Guwen waved his hand, a strong wind rushed towards this newly born Taiching golden immortal, catching her off guard. Her eyes showed a moment of confusion, but when her gaze returned to normal, she spoke. "Who are you?" Her words surprised her and instinctively she reached out to touch her mouth. Her voice was melodious, ethereal, yet devoid of any emotional shift. Guwen smiled and said, "Who I am doesn't matter. What's important is who you think you are. Have you thought of a name for yourself? He had just given her some memories, helping her establish the language system of the heavenly Tao. After her transformation, she could now speak human language, but having never communicated with others, she hadn't established a cognitive framework. Upon hearing this, the long-haired girl frowned, deep in thought, as Guan patiently waited without disturbing her. After a long while, the long-haired girl spoke. My name is Hong Yi. Hong Yi? Guan immediately saw the deeper cause and effect surrounding her. It turned out that her great Tao opportunity came from that place. Guan asked, do you want to follow me in cultivation? Hong Yi understood what cultivation was, but she didn't feel an impulse to cultivate just yet. However, she was curious about Guan, so she nodded subconsciously in agreement. Guan turned around, and after a moment of hesitation, Hong Yi followed his steps. As they walked, Guan waved his hand and pieces of crystal flew from the grass. These were transformed from Hong Yi's accompanying eggshell, and under his manipulation, these crystals quickly gathered together and ignited with a cyan flame. This scene finally brought a spark of expression to Hong Yi's eyes as she stared intently at the cyan flame in midair. Soon the cyan flame flew towards her. She didn't dodge it, instead she watched it curiously. The cyan flame landed on her, enveloping her body from the neck down. As she looked down, she felt warm all over, remarkably comfortable. When the cyan flame dissipated, a white garment appeared on Hong Yi. The robe was bright white, with silver crystal inlays at the waist and wrists. The hem was long, resembling a skirt's edge, and even without shoes, wearing this garment dramatically changed her aura. Hong Yi continued forward, feeling the garment on her body, feeling uncomfortable and wanting to take it off. Don't take it off. This is a form of cultivation as well. You must get used to it. Guan's voice came from ahead. Hearing this, Hong Yi stopped her actions, looking at Guan's back, confused but refrained from asking. For some reason in front of Guan she instinctively chose to obey. An hour later, Guan led Hong Yi to a vast, boundless mountain. When they stopped, as far as the eye could see, it seemed like they were on a grassland. He turned to face Hong Yi, then lifted his robe and sat in meditation, gesturing for Hong Yi to sit down as well. Hong Yi mimicked his posture and sat down, but once seated, she couldn't help but squirm. Before cultivation, let's first help you understand the kind of world you are in, Guan said. As his words fell, Hong Yi's entire being froze, her eyes widened, pupils revealing numerous scenes, leaving her dazzled. Guan watched Hong Yi, his expression calm but inwardly filled with anticipation. Given her potential to become a saint, what heights might she reach if he were to mentor her? Guan was not afraid of Hong Yi surpassing him. Having someone to chase him would be quite delightful. Not only he felt this way, but the celestial emperor also shared this thought. The wind in the world blew across the mountain plain, where Guan and Hong Yi appeared insignificant. As seen from high above the clouds, they were insignificant amidst the green ocean. Since deciding to mentor Hong Yi, Guan frequently left the dojo. The disciples either didn't notice his departure, and even if they knew, they dared not ask. Time flows quickly. 1,000,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this particular morning, Guan arrived in the depths of the mountain forest, a stretch millions of billions of miles long. Even some powerful cultivation-level beings who ventured there would lose their way, as the true essence of the great Tao was very strong there. Deep in the forest, there was a pavilion in front of an ancient tree. Hong Yi, in her white robe, was standing in front of a water tank, gazing at her reflection, lost in thought. Guan walked up to her and with a smile asked, "What are you looking at?" Hong Yi turned her head to look at him and replied, "I'm pondering who I truly am, why I was born, and what goal I should have for cultivation." Even after following Guan in cultivation for 1,000,000 years, Hong Yi's temperament remained cold and indifferent. She was curious about everything, but that curiosity evaporated once she understood. If you can't find it yet, just continue to cultivate. Sooner or later you'll find out, Guan said casually. Indeed, this was a question Hong Yi had to ponder, and he could only guide, not decide. Guan did not wish to limit Hong Yi's existence. More variables might add more interest. Who are you really and how should I address you? Are we considered master and disciple? Hong Yi asked, staring at Guan. A few years ago, a group of cultivators flew over this forest, and Hong Yi overheard their conversations. Some people, with intertwined cause and effect, interacted as master and disciple, which piqued her curiosity about such relationships. Guan said, "If you truly wish to know, maybe you can take it as your cultivation goal. If one day you can defeat me, I will tell you who I am. As for whether we are master and disciple, it does not matter. I am teaching you because, like you, I am curious. After hearing this, Hong Yi's expression remained unchanged, only murmuring softly, "Is it also out of curiosity?" With those words, she suddenly raised her palm and struck towards Guan, the attack swift and fierce. This chapter is updated by Fru, a novel. See OM if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 905. Taoist Momentum. Faced with Hong Yi's palm strike, Guan was indifferent, and just as Hong Yi struck, her expression changed, for her palm stopped before Guan, unable to advance. Her palm was less than 10 centimeters from Guan's chest, yet this short distance felt immovable to her. Hong Yi withdrew her palm and looked at her own hand, then at Guan, a puzzled expression crossing her face. "Is this a divine skill? But why do I not sense your mana?" Hong Yi asked. Having followed Guan in cultivation for 1,000,000 years, she had mastered many divine skills, but this was her first time confronting Guan directly, having never even sparred before. Guan smiled. "Your perception is quite good indeed, but this is not a divine skill. It is a kind of Taoist momentum, and once your realm is high enough, you can cultivate such momentum. The so-called Taoist momentum is a unique ability of a saint, impervious to all evils, indestructible by any law. No matter how much effort a non-saint exerts, they cannot harm a saint." Hearing this, Hong Yi nodded slightly, her expectations for cultivation growing even stronger. At the very least, she wanted to push Guan to exert his full strength. Guan raised his hand and brushed it over the surface of a water cistern. A flash of light appeared on the water's surface, followed by a reflection of a battle scene inside. One combatant had achieved transformation, a man in black fighting a heaven and earth fierce beast resembling a swan and eye, shaking the very mountains. "I've taught you enough, now you must cultivate the path of battle," Guan said, not angry at Hong Yi's surprise attack. Instead, he felt gratified. For tens of thousands of years he had encouraged her to attack him, but she never had the fighting spirit. Later he promised she could strike him anytime. After waiting for tens of thousands of years, Hong Yi's attack signified her nascent sense of competitiveness, vital for her growth. Sooner or later she would leave Guan and venture into the heavenly Tao alone. And that day would not be far off. Hong Yi intently watched the battle, observing the two beings in the cistern image displaying divine skills, her eyes flashing with interest. In the following days, Guan taught Hong Yi the path of battle. Hong Yi's comprehension was incredibly high, and with Guan's guidance, her understanding of battle deepened. Guan would mold clay figures of equal realm to spar with her, and her fighting ability advanced rapidly. Returning to the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan began harvesting medicinal herbs. Now he exclusively harvested herbs within the Taoist field of the beginningless, saving much trouble. Guan had also moved the hidden spirit palace to the underground of this field, a profound subterranean sea, while the deep-sea dragon Carp had established a dragon palace in the celestial spirit great world, considered his graduation. Upon arriving in central heaven, Guan severed many ties, but this was a necessary path. More than regret, he looked forward to a new future. After harvesting the herbs, Guan headed towards the mountain of no end. Along the way he encountered woodcutters, fishermen, farmers, and even martial artists and building laborers. It was as if all Wuxia disciples were rehearsing mundane life. Their cultivation levels were not low, and they could sense the increasingly powerful aura outside the dojo, always feeling that their forefather might release the outside beings any moment. Seeing Guan, they merely glanced without saluting, as Guan had instructed beforehand. If everyone saluted him when they saw him, that would definitely lead to exposure. Returning to the courtyard on the mountain of no end, Shenzhen turned to look at him and asked, "Is there someone outside for you? You've been acting strangely for the past 100,000 years." Guan stopped, looked at her and asked, "What did you see?" Shenzhen cultivated the path of cause and effect. For her to say such a thing, she must have seen something. "I see a woman cultivating with a man whose cause and effect is hidden. It should be you," Shenzhen said, her eyes on Guan, with a hint of anticipation. What she anticipated was not the woman but her ability to deduce Guan's figure. Guan smiled, praising, "You've been making great progress in cultivation recently, to discover my whereabouts." This pleased Shenzhen greatly. She feigned modesty, coughing lightly. Guan also thought it amusing. Though Shenzhen's comprehension of the path of cause and effect was strong, it couldn't anticipate a saint's cause and effect. Her success was due to his deliberate actions. Guan had deeper intentions besides motivating Shenzhen. "By the way, who is that woman?" What is her name? I cannot fully discern her cause and effect, Shenzhen asked curiously. The fact that Guan personally guided her meant she must have a significant background. Guan did not conceal it, explaining Hong Yi's general background. As for her great destiny from the Great Tao, he did not mention it. Hong Yi, born as a Taiqing golden immortal. Shenzhen appeared in a daze. She had achieved the realm of an innate golden immortal, but the heaven-balancing golden immortal remained far off. Currently, not one had emerged in the beginningless. Comparing herself to Hong Yi, born surpassing the heaven-balancing golden immortal, it was inevitably shocking. No wonder Guan personally taught her. If Shenzhen had the qualification to take Hong Yi as a disciple, she would surely do the same. She and I are not master and disciple yet, I'm merely guiding her into the Tao. Her future does not belong to the beginningless. Currently, only you know her relationship with me. Keep it to yourself, Guan said seriously. Shenzhen felt awkward upon hearing this. He doesn't want Xiaolan to know but doesn't care how I feel knowing? While she thought so, she replied, Rest assured I won't tell anyone. Hearing you say this, I'm also looking forward to her future achievements. Guan laughed, finding her candid thoughts interesting. They chatted briefly before Guan returned to his room to be alone, while Shenzhen meditated before the artifact refining cauldron, seeing nothing but Hong Yi's cultivating figure. Celestial Court, Palace of the Pole Star. The palace was bright, shrouded in clouds and mist. Its edges seemed to have no palace walls, allowing views of the blue sky and even the stars. A man dressed in a golden robe, the heavenly emperor, stood atop the grand hall, his gaze fixed on the figure sitting atop the supreme dragon throne. This was a man in a golden-patterned white robe, emblazoned with a golden dragon, wearing a curtain pearl emperor crown, his face indifferent, eyes golden. He lay lazily against the chair back, two true golden dragons crouched on his shoulders, one napping, the other raising its head, scrutinizing the heavenly emperor. Even without movement, he exuded an air of dominance over all of creation, as if the phrase, "one alone is supreme," was invented for him. He was the Lord of Heaven, the supreme entity within the heavenly Tao, the Celestial Emperor. The Celestial Emperor gazed down at the heavenly emperor, his cold eyes inscrutable. Under the Celestial Emperor's scrutiny, the heavenly emperor met his gaze calmly, unflinching, even confrontational. You have lost your cultivation level. The Celestial Emperor's words left the heavenly emperor's expression changed, eyes briefly flickering with terror. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 906. The position of the Celestial Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor appeared flustered for a brief moment, but quickly regained his composure. He narrowed his eyes and sneered, Father, do you wish to test my 9 heavens true dragon chi again? He wore an unruly smile as if he were the Celestial Emperor. However, faced with his aggression, the Celestial Emperor remained indifferent, simply watching him quietly. The Celestial Emperor's gaze made the Heavenly Emperor's skin crawl, his heart sinking into despair. He became increasingly certain that the Celestial Emperor was not testing him, which led him to hopelessness. Previously, he had gained control over the Celestial Court by coercing the Celestial Emperor, an affair that ended on bad terms. Now that he had lost his cultivation level, how could the Celestial Emperor spare him? Their relationship had long surpassed the bond of father and son, becoming that of enemies but not mortal enemies, rather adversaries under the power struggles of the heavenly Tao. How long the Celestial Emperor had lived, even he, the Heavenly Emperor, did not know. But he could be sure that even when confronting his own son, the enraged Celestial Emperor would not show mercy. He wouldn't regret a single execution. Some sons of heaven were cast down to the mortal world, some exiled to chaos, some fell into the underworld, never to return. There were even those whose beings were utterly obliterated. No matter how he thought about it, the Heavenly Emperor felt destined for the direst outcome, potentially becoming a cautionary tale for future emperors. You are very much like your mother, she was as ambitious as you are. The Celestial Emperor suddenly spoke, catching the Heavenly Emperor off guard. He furrowed his brows, unable to fathom the Celestial Emperor's intent behind these words. He wasn't foolish enough to hope for the Celestial Emperor's pardon. The Celestial Emperor continued, Your mother died for power, I did not bring her back to the Celestial Court but brought you. It was her wish. Between you and her, she chose to have you ascend to the immortal class. The Heavenly Emperor remained silent. He had long forgotten his mother's visage. In ordinary times he never thought of her. In hearing the celestial emperor's words, his heart remained unruffled. As a son of heaven, he had experienced the reincarnation tribulation before, memories far more stirring than this. He knew well that the celestial emperor chose him because of his talent. With so many sons of heaven, was it possible they all rose due to their mother's favor? Because of the celestial emperor's words, the heavenly emperor calmed. Matters had come to this. He decided to face his fate with clarity. Though he hadn't held the celestial court's authority for long, at least he had succeeded. As a heavenly son, he had done his utmost. Even if it meant dying, he would die without regret. I will give you a chance. I will not move against your immortal authority, but you must contend with Taihao for the celestial emperor's position. Whether you succeed or not, I will pass my cultivation level to the victor, allowing either of you, even if you've lost your cultivation level, to reach the pinnacle once more. The celestial emperor stared at him, speaking coldly. The heavenly emperor showed no surprise, instead asking with perplexity, "Why do this?" The celestial emperor replied frankly, "I wish to support Taihao as celestial emperor, but he lacks distinguished merits. I intend to use you as his stepping stone. Yet if you surpass him, then it proves the throne belongs to you. My question is, why do you wish to relinquish the throne?" The heavenly emperor gazed at the celestial emperor with piercing eyes, like blades trying to stab through his heart. The celestial emperor answered, "Sitting on this throne for so long has grown tiresome. I wish to leave the celestial court, to pursue my own Tao, and to seek out an old acquaintance for a long-awaited duel." You, who have lost your cultivation level, desire to duel? I naturally have ways to regain it, unlike you who must pretend to remain calm, awaiting another's mercy. For the first time, the celestial emperor's tone shifted, full of sarcasm, making the heavenly emperor's face turn grim. Seeing the heavenly emperor's expression, the corners of the celestial emperor's mouth lifted in a smile. He said, "Your only chance of winning is to seize the central heaven's destiny. In the future, I will transfer the celestial Tao destiny to central heaven. By then, the immortal gods in central heaven will only grow more numerous. While Taihao is still cultivating, you still have a chance. Now leave." The heavenly emperor fell silent, with many questions to ask, but felt he had no other choice. Only by surviving could he understand these matters. Even if his questions were answered now, if he were to die, what use would those answers be to him? The heavenly emperor took a deep breath, saluted the celestial emperor, and turned to leave. The celestial emperor watched him depart, his gaze becoming profound. Time passed in a blink over countless millennia. Central heaven had renewed its visage, the world filled with vitality. On the edge of a cliff, Hong-Yi meditated facing the magnificent sun, surrounded by a purple aura. In the distant sky flew immortal birds, as if mountains soared through the firmament, a truly magnificent sight. Guan approached Hong-Yi from behind, gazing at the majestic scene ahead. He sighed, "The sky of central heaven grows ever more beautiful, and now even traces of the great Tao can be seen." Hong-Yi opened her eyes, turned to him, and asked, "In this world today, what is the mightiest realm?" Guan, without meeting her gaze, quietly answered, "Tao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal, which is the pinnacle of the immortal Tao, the third layer of the Daoyuo Tao fruit. And you are currently striving for the Daoyuo Tao fruit." Upon hearing this, Hong-Yi turned her head, looking toward the horizon, murmuring, "Is the gap truly so vast?" Guan didn't reply, allowing her to ponder. After a while he finally spoke, "Hong-Yi, starting tomorrow I won't come anymore. The road ahead you must walk on your own, do what you wish." At these words, Hong-Yi immediately stood up and turned to face him, her gaze fixed intensely on him, her eyes showing anger for the first time. In all her years of cultivation, Hong-Yi's emotions had remained stable, never showing such an expression. "Why?" Hong-Yi asked through gritted teeth, her anger gradually shifting to panic. Since she gained consciousness, she had followed Guan. Guan was the first person she saw upon opening her eyes. She had built a dependency on him and had never imagined life without him. Guan replied, "Everyone has a place to return to, a place to go from. Look at the birds at the horizon. They have had many companions, even traveled alone. I am me, they are them, why do you want to leave me?" Hong-Yi stared stubbornly at Guan. Guan smiled and said, "Your future is broader. I do not enjoy such a life, so I will not hold you back. If you do not like it, I can forsake it. You'll live the life you enjoy." Hong-Yi said earnestly. She currently liked cultivating, enjoyed battling and becoming stronger, but she wasn't willing to leave Guan. She couldn't imagine how to live if she left Guan. Guan shook his head and said, "When you venture out for a while, you'll grasp the wonders of the world, which will also help you grow stronger. I don't believe it, I won't leave you, Hong Yi said sternly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 907. Emerging from obscurity. Looking at Hong Yi's stubborn expression, Guan felt quite gratified. This was the first time he had seen Hong Yi so anxious. In the past, Hong Yi had little emotional fluctuation, and while interacting with Guan besides cultivation, they wouldn't talk about anything else. Their interactions could be described as bland like water. The future Hong Yi would be the same, dealing with people and matters in a calm manner, displaying the demeanor of a great power. Seeing Hong Yi with such emotions indicated that Guan's efforts over the years were indeed rewarding. Guan thought for a moment and said, "How about this, live alone for 10,000 years? After 10,000 years, if you still wish to follow me, call me, and I'll appear before you to take you along." Hong Yi didn't seem happy upon hearing this, instead gripping Guan's sleeve even tighter with her right hand. She just stared at Guan without saying a word. Guan sighed helplessly and his pupils suddenly changed, left red and right blue, leaving Hong Yi momentarily stunned. After several breaths, Hong Yi blinked, and her right hand loosened its grip. She looked at Guan again, her eyes turning complex. "Did you see? Following me, would you enjoy such a monotonous life?" Guan said seriously, using Dao intent to create a memory that allowed Hong Yi to accompany him for hundreds of millions of years. During those hundreds of millions of years, Guan repeated his daily life with Hong Yi, picking flowers and herbs, fishing and carving, drawing and writing books, and so on. There was no conflict, no interaction with too many people. Hong Yi's heart was shaken by such a life. After all, she was curious about everything, and this curiosity destined her not to live in seclusion in one place. Guan spoke earnestly, "Having seen the vastness of heaven and earth, you can truly become yourself. The birth of any creature is about finding its own existential meaning. Nobody is destined to be with another person for a lifetime." Hong Yi looked at Guan and asked, "Then what is your existential meaning? How do you see me? Am I your disciple or is there another relationship?" Guan replied, "More than a mentor-student relationship, I hope you can become my fellow Taoist, inspiring each other to reach greater heights. We are merely parting ways, not saying goodbye forever. I hope that the next time we meet, you've become stronger, no longer needing my guidance in cultivation, but rather discussing Tao on equal grounds. If possible, I even wish for you to become my adversary." "An adversary?" Upon hearing this, Hong Yi's eyes flickered. Over the years, every time she challenged Guan, her efforts were blocked by Guan's Taoist momentum, leaving her unsure of Guan's true strength. Thinking about being able to become Guan's adversary and having a heart-racing, earth-shattering battle with him, a flood of expectation filled her heart. This was the first time since her birth she felt such intense anticipation for something yet to happen. Hong Yi looked at Guan and asked, "Is the pact of 10,000 years still valid?" Guan laughed and said, "Not just 10,000 years. In the future, whenever you think of me or need me, you can call for me. Do not disclose my existence to anyone, but know I will always be your backing, understand?" Hong Yi didn't seem puzzled but responded, "I don't understand, but I'll remember." Guan raised his hand, ruffling her hair, looking at her while envisioning her future form. He anticipated the divine Hong Yi. How earth-shattering will the battles among saints be? Cultivation to become a saint, Guan wants to test his own strength too, unknowingly developing a mindset similar to the celestial emperor. Of course, Guan wouldn't wait for Hong Yi in the primordial Tai True Saint realm. He would also strive to become stronger. His anticipation was for battles with saints, but not battles of the same realm with saints. On this day, Guan unusually didn't instruct Hong Yi in cultivation but shared stories of the past with her, which she didn't find tedious. Even though Guan often disappeared, this time she felt a different kind of sentiment. Parting. Without Hong Yi, Guan seldom left the Taoist field of the beginningless. Initially he was somewhat unaccustomed, but this feeling soon faded. Over the long years he had already bid farewell to many old friends. He saw that Hong Yi didn't immediately leave the place of cultivation but continued to practice, preparing to surpass the Tai Ching Golden Immortal before venturing out. In the current Central Heaven, the strongest figures have reached the Tao Extreme Deluo Immortal Realm, but those are Outer Heaven great powers and immortal gods. Such beings can only preach but cannot interfere with struggles within heaven and earth. The strongest local beings and ascenders, even the highest cultivation level, only reached heaven balancing Golden Immortal. Even if Hong Yi hasn't surpassed the Tai Ching Golden Immortal, she could still roam the universe invincibly. Time passes, stars shift. 70 million years went by in the blink of an eye. This year, in Central Heaven, a being crossed the tribulation to achieve the Taiching golden immortal state, causing celestial anomalies. After successfully breaking through, he proclaimed to all living beings he wished to establish the demon race, inviting creatures capable of transformation to join him. With the emergence of the demon race, all living beings were shaken. The celestial Tao destiny in Central Heaven began to change violently, marking the onset of a whole new era. The power of the demon race sprang up like bamboo shoots after a rain, with many transforming creatures declaring themselves as demons, thereby drawing more beings to join them and intensifying the struggles within heaven and earth. On this day, atop a desolate plain where smoke still lingered, the thunderclouds above hadn't yet dispersed, and the earth was scarred as if it had undergone a terrible disaster. In the middle of a large pit, Liya, covered in blood, lay at the bottom, his hair disheveled, his clothes torn, looking very battered. He had been lying there for a long time. Once he finally regained his senses, he struggled to lift his head, finding his eyes extremely bright, filled with surprise. Such dense spiritual energy, and it carries the true meaning of the great Tao. Liya was extremely excited, having finally arrived at the legendary Central Heaven. To find Central Heaven, he had overcome numerous hardships, and this ascension almost cost him his life. As his Tao fruit began to recover, he found his cultivation level had increased, feeling the hope of attaining heaven-balancing golden immortal for the first time. Before he could contemplate further, a wave of powerful demon chi descended from the sky, and countless demons passed through the thunderclouds, landing on the vast earth, causing him to furrow his brows tightly. The demons in Central Heaven each emitted an ancient and fierce aura, and even though many of them were far weaker in cultivation than him, gathered together they still made him uncomfortable. He struggled to rise, stood shakily and looked up, only to see a figure appearing at the edge of the pit. It was a man in red robes, with black hair dancing, and a handsome face that made him somewhat confused. The red-robed man emitted strong demon chi all over, clearly not a human race cultivator, and his cultivation was unfathomable to Liya. "Are you an ascender?" The red-robed man spoke, his voice indifferent, yet imposing. Liya took a deep breath and said, "I am Liya from the 3,000 Great Worlds. How should I address you, fellow Taoist?" The red-robed man examined him and replied, "I am Fang Qiu, a local being of Central Heaven. Why did you ascend? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 908, Wuxia's Enlightenment. Why ascend? Liya didn't expect the first question he faced after arriving in Central Heaven to be so direct. He was silent for a moment and then said, "For immortal fate, for the great Tao." The man in the red robe, who called himself Fang Qiu, looked down at him and said, "Immortal fate? You ascenders all say there is an opportunity to ascend to immortality in this world, but we who were born and raised here, have heard lectures from the great powers, yet have never seen this so-called immortal fate." Figures appeared on the edge of the great pit. All were transformed demons, with the weakest cultivation level being innate golden immortals. Liya was secretly shocked. During the immortal and demon chaos in the 3,000 Great Worlds, Central Heaven was just founded. How many years has it been, and Central Heaven has already cultivated such a foundation? No wonder this world could become the heavenly Tao center. After the shock, Liya felt an infinite longing in his heart. Only such a world is worthy of all his efforts to come here. "It's your first time here, do you have a place to go?" Fang Qiu asked as he stared at Liya. Seeing that he had no malice, Liya answered, "No, I still need to learn about Central Heaven." For some reason, Liya inexplicably felt a good impression of Fang Qiu. He now understood that Fang Qiu's figure was too much like his junior brother Gu. He even suspected that junior brother Gu was in Central Heaven and this demon had transformed by imitating junior brother Gu's image. Thus he decided to spend some time with Fang Qiu. Fang Qiu immediately extended an invitation and said, "Why not come to my mountain and sit for a while?" "Thank you for the invitation, fellow Taoist." Liya smiled, raised his hand and saluted Fang Qiu. His ascension was naturally noticed by Guan. Far away in the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan heard Liya's heartfelt voice and secretly admired senior brother Li for being smart. He had guessed it correctly. However, it's a pity that such a guess will soon be abandoned by Liya. After talking with Fang Qiu, Liya learned that Fang Qiu's transformation did not reference anyone, and Fang Qiu had no master, forcing him to abandon this speculation. It seems to be a coincidence. Perhaps he missed junior brother Gu too much, which is why such speculation arose. Thinking about it carefully, the image of junior brother Gu in his mind had already become blurred. Meeting Fang Qiu after his ascension was not a good thing for Li Ya. The reason Fang Qiu invited him was due to hidden ambitions. Fang Qiu wanted to learn about other realms, and later there would be conflicts, even enmity between the two, marking Li Ya's first tribulation upon arriving in Central Heaven. Guan would not intervene because Li Ya would be able to escape unharmed. As for Fang Qiu, he wouldn't care either, as he and Fang Qiu had only met once with no relationship between them. Throughout the long years, Guan had touched and seen countless beings. Very few of them had walked into his heart. Li Ya's arrival indicated that the heavenly Tao had opened the path of ascension from the 3,000 great worlds to Central Heaven. Ascenders experienced the red dust and were deeply shrewd. They would intensify the development of Central Heaven, making the situation in Central Heaven even more chaotic. The immortal gods, who oversaw Central Heaven, established a court in the heavens. They looked down upon the evolution of all worldly matters, finding the actions of the Ascenders merely amusing. The heavenly Tao also had requirements for the Ascenders. It would not allow an existence that could disrupt the balance of Central Heaven to ascend. Therefore, Ascenders could influence Central Heaven but could not dominate its affairs. Even when on the same realm, the beings of Central Heaven could still distance themselves from the Ascenders, making them recognize reality and the difference between immortals and mortals. Every year, Central Heaven would see the birth of talented individuals and Heaven's proud sons appearing out of nowhere, proclaiming their might. Those ambitious Ascenders would suffer repeated setbacks, beginning to reign in their arrogant hearts. Autumn rain drizzled down, and the mountain forest drenched by the rain emitted mist. Guan sat in a small pavilion halfway up the mountain, appreciating the rain, with fine wine and flower fruits arranged on the table, prepared by the ghost mother of ephemera. A figure passed by on the mountain path outside the courtyard, suddenly stopping and turning to look at Guan. This person was precisely Wuxia. Since arriving in Central Heaven, Wuxia had not stopped cultivating. His cultivation level rose rapidly and was already close to reaching the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm. He was still the most dazzling disciple within the beginningless. Wuxia looked at Guan inside the pavilion, recalling the words he once said to him. "Am I really that boring?" Wuxia had more than once doubted himself in this way, reflecting that apart from cultivation, he indeed had no other interests. Communicating with fellow disciples, they only talked about cultivation. He used to think cultivation was most important, but after arriving in Central Heaven, his views had somewhat shifted. Cultivation was indeed important, but the path of cultivation was never just about solitary retreat. Especially after the ancestor asked them to adapt to mortal identities, more and more disciples began to find new paths to enlightenment. Laboring in the fields allowed one to observe the Tao of the earth. Chopping trees and building houses allowed one to hear the Tao of feng shui from all directions. Painting landscapes allowed one to appreciate the Tao of life in all things. In recent years, Wuxia also thought about what kind of mortal identity he should assume. He passed by here not because he was heading for the ancestor, for in truth, no one in the dojo could capture the ancestor's aura and cause and effect. He just happened to be passing by. However, upon seeing the ancestor's figure, he suddenly wanted to chat with the ancestor and ask for guidance. The ancestor seemed to have no opinion of him, only that he wasn't interesting enough. If he had doubts and actively asked the ancestor might not refuse, right? As Wuxia hesitated, Guan's voice came through, "If you want to ask, then come on." Wuxia was shocked. How could his thoughts be guessed? But thinking of the legends about the ancestor, he quickly became relieved. The ancestor was an existence even more formidable than immortal gods. Seeing through people's hearts was nothing extraordinary. Wuxia immediately walked to the small pavilion, directly to Guan's side and bowed. "Sit down." Guan looked at Wuxia and showed a kindly smile. Wuxia was also moved by his smile and completely eased his burden. Before Wuxia could speak, Guan took a book from his bosom and placed it in front of him. Wuxia unconsciously took a closer look and read the title aloud, "Journey to the West?" "Since the weather is pleasant, you may as well take a look first." Hearing Guan's words, Wuxia immediately picked up Journey to the West. He had long heard that the ancestor enjoyed reading books, not scripture but mundane books, and he had tried to read them but could not calm his mind. This time, as Wuxia opened Journey to the West, he felt an inexplicable peace in his heart, none of the previous impatience, and quickly got absorbed in its content with a quiet mind. After Wuxia finished this book, Guan took out another one. Without asking, Wuxia picked it up and read. So it went repeatedly, Guan kept changing books and Wuxia kept reading diligently, just at an incredibly fast pace. The autumn rain continued, and white streaks of lightning appeared in the thunderclouds at the horizon, illuminating distant mountains, with red light seeming to flash at the edge of the world. Guan turned his head to look, muttering softly to himself. In the end, couldn't refrain, could he? He saw the Celestial Emperor descending into the mortal world. The Celestial Emperor came to Central Heaven not to plot the Celestial Tao destiny, but rather, he was coming for him. The Celestial Emperor seemed to have calculated that Guan would come to Central Heaven. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 909. Anticipation regarding the descent of the Celestial Emperor. Guan did not take it too seriously. Before his sainthood, he wanted to compete with the Celestial Emperor, but after becoming a saint, this thought faded. Let's talk about it when the Celestial Emperor becomes a saint. However, the cause and effect of the Celestial Emperor did not show signs of sainthood, making Guan sigh at the indescribable wonder of opportunity. In front of the great Tao there is no fairness to speak of. The Celestial Emperor, who created the heavenly Tao and so many fortunes, bitterly sought the opportunity for sainthood in vain, while Hongyi was destined to become a saint from birth. How ironic is that? Guan pondered as he admired the autumn rain outside the pavilion. This rain reminded him of the scenes in the profound valley of the Supreme Sect, becoming increasingly vivid in his mind, bringing a smile to his lips. Until dusk, Guan finally looked at Wuxia and opened his mouth. How do you feel? Wuxia came back to his senses, looked up at Guan and could not help but smile. He had read books before, but they were all books on cultivation. This was his first time truly savoring mundane books. Although he had previously observed the myriad states of the human world and knew of various worldly affairs, reading mundane books today gave him a different experience. For the first time he could feel the emotions and thoughts of mortals. Previously he couldn't calm his heart, but today he was inexplicably at peace, knowing that this was definitely not a coincidence. It must be the doings of the ancestral master. Wuxia's eyes showed gratitude. He suppressed his excitement and said, I think I have found the answer. Having read so many books, he became interested in the identities of some protagonists and also wanted to experience their lives. Then let's head back, Guan said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Wuxia immediately stood up, bowed to him and then turned to leave. The rain had stopped, and as he walked on the muddy mountain road, he suddenly realized something and paused to turn his head back. This time he also did not say much to the ancestral master. After mustering the courage today to chat with the ancestral master, he was excited, but from the ancestral master's perspective, he did not bring any amusement today. It seems I really am an uninteresting person. Wuxia gave a wry smile, not feeling disappointed, and quickly left. The everyday lives depicted in the books gave him many insights, sparking interests beyond cultivation. Sitting in the pavilion, Guan instead felt that Wuxia had become lively. Although Wuxia considered himself uninteresting, it made him appear intriguing. Of course, Guan only found Wuxia to be somewhat interesting. It wasn't enough for him to always keep Wuxia around. Moreover, he was the ancestral master. How could he actively seek out disciples to play with? Su-Han could often accompany him because Su-Han was proactive enough. Guan stood up and walked out of the courtyard. The wine jars on the table would naturally be tidied by someone else. The night quickly descended, with stars lighting up one by one across the night sky, adorning the galaxy. Central Heaven's night was utterly beautiful, often graced by the sight of meteors streaking across. The descent of the Celestial Emperor did not stir up any commotion in the human world. No human or immortal knew he had come. In the years that followed, when immortal gods and outer heaven great powers preached, they began to praise the celestial court, allowing the celestial court to formally enter the hearts of the living beings in Central Heaven. Meanwhile, countless demon race forces emerged between heaven and earth, with powerful beings occupying territories as kings, rallying under the banner of demons. Influenced by the Ascender's instigation, the concept of conquest began to spread. 1,000,000 years later, Central Heaven entered an era of conquest, where seizing land and expanding territory became the ambition of various demon kings, leaving fewer and fewer pure lands in the human world. One great power, while preaching, said that whoever could unify the demon race would achieve great merit and rank in the immortal class. Upon hearing this, all living beings were inspired. Regardless of cultivation level, everyone was fueled with ambition, even leading to numerous incidents of demon kings being betrayed by their subordinates. Under the Tsangtian, barren mountains stretched for thousands of miles. At a glance, green was rare, displaying only a desolate landscape. On a cliff, Liya, dressed in black, carried a treasure sword on his shoulder, with a straw in his mouth, strolling leisurely. Disheveled and with long hair casually tied at the back, he resembled a wanderer of the wilds. Liya was contemplating which holy land to visit next. Ever since he freed himself from Fangqiu, he began traveling the world, having recently attended a preaching session. Central Heaven indeed had many profound great powers. It was said that the great power who preached came from outer heaven, and the Tao he preached was something Liya had never heard of in the 3,000 great worlds. It was incredibly profound, benefiting him greatly. Coupled with the nature's spiritual energy and natural great Tao of Central Heaven, he believed that spending the same amount of time in cultivation would yield far greater achievements here, making him immensely look forward to the future. Once he attained Tao and immortality, he wanted to return to the celestial spirit great world to have his father see what a true immortal truly was. As Liya pondered, he suddenly noticed something and squinted, only to see a figure approaching at the end of the cliff. It was a woman in white, possessing an immortal aura and peerless beauty, yet her expression was aloof, as if she did not partake in worldly affairs, akin to a female immortal. The visitor was none other than Hong Yi. Since parting with Guan, Hong Yi had been in closed cultivation, never summoning Guan even when the 10,000-year period arrived. Not long ago, she found the opportunity to break through to become a heaven-opening Daluo immortal. Aware that her upcoming crossing the tribulation would be earth-shattering, she intentionally suppressed it, preparing to find a secluded place to undergo the tribulation. She was not in a hurry. If she couldn't find such a place, she would summon Guan, believing that he would protect her. When Liya looked at her, she paid him no mind. In her eyes, an innate golden immortal was no different than an ant. Neither stopped, maintaining their pace forward. Even as they passed each other, they did not pause. For some reason, once Liya was sure the other party had no intention of acting, he felt a sense of relief. His intuition told him that this woman's cultivation level was unfathomable and not to be provoked. There are indeed many great powers in Central Heaven. Even junior brother Gu would act cautiously here, wouldn't he? Thinking this, Liya became even more convinced that Guan would come to Central Heaven, as it had already displayed the destiny and foundation as the center of the heavenly Tao. From this brief meeting, even though they exchanged no words, Hong Yi's elegance left a deep impression in Liya's mind. He had a premonition that when he became a top-tier expert in the world, he and this woman would often cross paths. This filled Liya with anticipation. His favorite thing was rising from weakness. Coming to Central Heaven, he once again became small and without reputation, but it filled him with fighting spirit. Unbeknownst to him, Hong Yi equally had no reputation. When he was an innate golden immortal, Hong Yi had not been born yet. As Hong Yi was about to surpass the Taiching golden immortal, he still remained an innate golden immortal. Meanwhile, on the other side of the human world, in the coastal mountain woodlands, a forest lay slanted and askew, with even smoke and scorched remnants lingering. Zooming in to see, there was a man lying in the pile of scorched wood. His robe had turned into strips, revealing bronze skin underneath. He looked at the sky, expression tense. Why hasn't my body recovered yet? Martial resolution thought to himself, gritting his teeth, feeling uneasy, fearing that demons would approach, for he could feel the dense demon chi in this area, sending shivers down his spine. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9-10. The Birth of the Human Race. Martial resolution struggled to calm his mind and steady himself. He began to wonder about the origins of this world. Having traveled through the 3,000 great worlds, he was unfortunately swept into a space-time turbulence while contesting for a supreme treasure. When he awoke, he found himself in this place. It had been many years since he left the celestial spirit great world, and despite having visited many realms, he was still shocked by the spiritual energy of this world. What on earth is this place? Martial resolution sensed the dense demon chi from all directions and suspected he had arrived in a domain ruled by the demon race. Among all the 3,000 great worlds, there aren't many where the demon race reigns supreme. Suddenly, a fierce wind howled, stirring dust and acrid smoke, making his vision blurry and heightening his tension. When his vision cleared, he was taken aback. He saw a four-winged yellow dragon flying overhead. Its huge body couldn't be concealed by the sea of clouds, and an overwhelming aura descended, making him feel suffocated. Even as a heaven-encompassing free immortal who had endured countless trials, martial resolution felt so insignificant in front of this dragon. The other could crush him effortlessly with a single claw. The most terrifying thing was that someone stood atop this dragon's head. Although the person appeared small next to the four-winged demon dragon, their aura was so formidable that Martial Resolution couldn't ignore it. Martial Resolution's heartstrings tightened, sensing himself on the brink of a dire situation, uncertain how he might escape this peril. However, the Taoist atop the four-winged demon dragon merely glanced at Martial Resolution and did not command his mount to stop, nor did he make any move or utter any word towards Martial Resolution. Even after the four-winged demon dragon disappeared into the horizon, the look from the Taoist lingered in Martial Resolution's mind. What kind of gaze was that? Apathetic, devoid of any emotional color, unconcerned with his presence or condition. Such indifference was as if looking at a mere insect. No, even less than an insect. As if regarding the flowers and grass by the roadside. Martial Resolution felt a deep sense of insult, though his anger faded quickly, replaced by relief. Though humiliated, at least he survived. He suddenly realized that this world was different from any he had visited before. Despite the dense demon chi, no demon has come to trouble him, perhaps not because they haven't noticed him, but because they have and simply don't care. Thinking of this, Martial Resolution's composure returned, and he began to anticipate the sights that lay ahead. Not until a full day and night passed did Martial Resolution return to his normal state. When dawn broke, he leapt into the air, proceeding with caution. He flew towards the direction with the most living auras. That direction held not only demon chi but other energies, even containing immortal chi. His instinct told him that flying that way, great opportunities awaited. Guan, while picking medicinal herbs, watched Martial Resolution as he went to listen to the Tao. He still missed this old friend. In the past, when he was yet weak, he became acquainted with Martial Resolution. At that time, both were nobodies in the supreme sect. Martial Resolution's intense grief and sorrow could strangely prolong his lifespan, aiding him to reach his current heights. Martial Resolution's arrival in Central Heaven was naturally orchestrated by Gu, and Central Heaven would eventually become the ultimate destination for cultivators of the 3,000 great worlds. Guan merely helped Martial Resolution arrive early. Without his intervention, Martial Resolution would have been torn to ashes by space-time turbulence. Now, when Guan looked at Martial Resolution, he perceived many things. Martial Resolution's soul contained a true meaning of the Great Tao. Although it was far from Hong Yi's creation, this true meaning of the Great Tao could aid Martial Resolution to travel further. Upon arriving in Central Heaven, Martial Resolution immediately encountered countless new threads of destiny. Guan quietly extinguished some of the destiny lines that ended prematurely, so that when Martial Resolution faced choices in the future, he would be inexplicably led to make different decisions and avoid early demise. After gathering herbs, Guan stretched lazily, exchanged a few brief words with the Ghost Mother of Ephemera, and left. The Ghost Mother of Ephemera watched him depart, unaware that he had just altered another's fate during the process. Finished with collecting herbs, Guan walked through the fields, pondering what to do next. Along the way, Guan spotted Wuxia sparring with a disciple. The two wielded scimitars, dueling at the edge of the forest, their figures intersecting quickly but within the realm of the mundane. They had deliberately disguised themselves as martial artists. Guan did not pause his stride, yet his gaze invigorated Wuxia and the disciple, making their movements increasingly fast. Only after Guan vanished from their sight did they calm down. "Martial uncle, how many times do we have to fight like this?" The fighting disciple couldn't help but ask Wuxia. Wuxia glared at him and said, "Don't think it's tedious. One day you'll gain enlightenment from this. Your emotions aren't adequate, it's not like facing a mortal enemy. If you encounter someone suspicious, you'll surely be seen through. Do you want to be the first disciple expelled?" Upon hearing this, the male disciple quickly shook his head, his face contorting with hatred, making his moves erratic, which pleased Wuxia. "Now that's more like it." Their battle was just a glimpse of events within the Taoist field of the beginningless. More and more disciples were attempting to practice mortal interactions to immerse themselves fully. Their instincts told them that the day for the Taoist field of the beginningless to open was approaching. Guan was also waiting. He was waiting for the human race to be established, for the Celestial Emperor to leave. In the years that followed, watching the experiences of Li Ya, Martial Resolution, and Hong Yi became Guan's pastime. After the Celestial Emperor descended to the mortal world for countless millennia without finding Guan, he chose to leave Central Heaven. During this period, the Celestial Emperor once came near the beginningless, but was misled by Guan's Tao intent, causing him to bypass it. The Absolute Supreme of the Heavenly Tao was unaware and could only leave with regret. Not long after the Celestial Emperor departed, the heavenly emperor descended with a female immortal. This female immortal descended in the extreme east to begin creating the human race. The birth of the human race led to the celestial Tao light layer shrouding central heaven to shower abundant merits, as the immortal gods proclaimed the event to all living beings. Creating a race could earn celestial Tao merits and ascend to immortality, which stirred a great uproar in the world, as the term human race etched itself into the awareness of all living beings. What kind of race could their mere birth elevate their creator to the immortal class? Learning of the human race's birth, the Wuxia disciples grew more anxious, as they were disguising themselves as mortals. Now that the human race was born, it clearly determined the opening of the beginningless. That day, in a bamboo forest, Guan sat on the steps, guiding an Xian and Zue in cultivating the immortal emperor's eye, as the two disciples meditated beside him, each staring into the other's eyes with their own immortal emperor's eye. They were using the immortal emperor's eye to engage in combat. Suddenly, an Xian and Zue's expressions changed dramatically as they were simultaneously repelled, falling to the ground. They sat up, clutching their chests, looking at Guan filled with a palpable sense of dread. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:11. Central Heaven's strongest and Xian turned her head to look at Guan, trying to calm her emotions. She said, "Master, in Central Heaven, a pair of immortal emperor's eyes has been born." For the first time, Sin felt the malice from another pair of immortal emperor's eyes, which made him uneasy, even though he was already an innate golden immortal. Guan sat on the steps holding a book in his hands. He casually replied, "If the 3,000 great worlds can bring forth an immortal emperor's eye, why not Central Heaven? Even so, this pair of immortal emperor's eyes feels very sinister to me. It might bring disaster to Central Heaven," an Xian said worriedly. Having been in Central Heaven for so many years, she had gotten used to life here. Although battles occurred frequently, it was more harmonious compared to the Great Thousand World. She didn't want that pair of immortal emperor's eyes to destroy the current peace. Guan glanced at her, saying, "Central Heaven does not belong to you or me, nor even to all living beings. You should understand that, at least for now, all living beings have no autonomy." Hearing this, an Xian fell silent. She understood the implication of her master's words. Central Heaven was created by the Celestial Court, and its evolution is certainly orchestrated by the Celestial Court. Having gone through so many tribulations, an Xian could confirm that the Celestial Court was the supreme ruler of the heavenly Tao. No one could shake it, not even her master. Sin asked, "Master, could the immortal emperor's eye be related to the Celestial Court? I remember you said that the Celestial Court does not tolerate the existence of immortal emperor's eyes." Guan replied, "That's right, the immortal emperor's eyes are derived from the Celestial Emperor's bloodline. However, with the fall of the Son of Heaven, its destiny was scattered across the heavens, making the immortal emperor's eyes into acquired divine power. Compared to the Son of Heaven's immortal emperor's eyes, there is a substantial gap." An Xian and Sin exchanged a glance, both furrowing their brows. Sin pressed on, "Can't our immortal emperor's eyes surpass the Son of Heaven's? Under normal circumstances, no. But through my creation, the immortal emperor's eyes can evolve into another type of eye." Guan said with a smile, which immediately made an Xian and Sin's eyes light up. They promptly asked what kind of eye was above the immortal emperor's eyes. Guan opened his eyes, and his pupils transformed into a golden red color. When the absolute void eye appeared, both an Xian and Sin felt a chill down their spines, their bodies stiffened, unable to move, with an unprecedented feeling of suffocation and fear. What kind of eyes are these? Looking at the absolute void eye, their minds went blank, losing the ability to think. Guan's pupils then changed back to normal, allowing the two to breathe a sigh of relief. Though it was just an instant, the absolute void eye made them feel like they'd walked on the edge of death, unforgettable and leaving them in shock. This is the absolute void eye, its marvels beyond your imagination. It will take you a long time of effort to master it. Guan cast his glance on the book in his hands, giving a brief introduction to the absolute void eye. His eyes had already evolved into the extreme demon and immortal pupil, but he could freely transform into the immortal emperor's eye or the absolute void eye, retaining the abilities of both. Absolute void eye, an Xian murmured the name, her eyes filled with excitement. Having studied the immortal emperor's eyes for so many years, she always felt that this divine skill had no upper limit. Upon learning that the acquired immortal emperor's eyes couldn't compare to the innate ones, she was deeply affected. Now that her master had created even stronger immortal emperor's eyes, how could she not be excited? Do the celestial emperor and the sons of heaven possess the absolute void eye? Sin asked nervously. Guan's lips curled up answering, only I have mastered it. Sin became immediately excited, even clenching his fists. Xian, however, thought of a question. She couldn't help but ask, Master, are your immortal emperor's eyes innate or acquired? Hearing this, Sin also looked curiously at Guan. Guan rolled his eyes, responding in exasperation, I'm no son of heaven, I can be called a fellow Taoist with the celestial emperor. Sin stared, asking, if that's the case, why do you hide here and why dare those immortal gods attack you? Because I'm boasting, must you ask so persistently? Can't you give your master a little dignity? Guan huffed, causing Sin to scratch his head awkwardly. Xian didn't think too much about it. She asked Guan, Master, to what realm must I cultivate to practice the absolute void eye? Reach Dao Extreme Daluo Immortal first and well see. Guan said casually, his words like a cold bucket of water dousing their excitement. Xian and Sin exchanged a look, then each sat down in meditation, continuing their cultivation. They no longer used the immortal emperor's eyes to spar but recalled the sensations that the absolute void eye had brought them. When I master the absolute void eye, perhaps they'll be able to catch up with Master, at least glimpse his realm. Xian thought, her heart filled with determination. She admired and respected Master the most, and catching up with him was her greatest wish. For this, she would remain unwavering, not confused, nor swayed by others or affairs. Sin, on the other hand, did not think that deeply. He simply desired the power of the absolute void eye. Xian and Sin's premonition was correct. Thousands of years later, while the living beings of the world were still vying for dominance, the immortal emperor's eye emerged out of nowhere. This pair of eyes consumed the mana of living beings, rapidly growing stronger, causing fear among all. The immortal emperor's eye originated from the human race. Shortly after their emergence, they struck terror into all beings, casting a shadow over this land. As dusk fell upon the world, the hills and fields were covered with red flowers. Martial Resolution walked through the sea of flowers, captivated by the breathtaking scenery surrounding him. The spiritual energy here is so unique, Martial Resolution muttered to himself, his steps never ceasing. He had been in Central Heaven for some time. He had listened to great powers preaching, and upon hearing that he had arrived at the future Heavenly Tao Center, he was thrilled, seeing it as a massive opportunity. Perhaps when he returned to the 3,000 great worlds, he would surpass all his old acquaintances, including that once unrecognizable old friend. For this reason he aimed to grow stronger, seizing every chance. This time he had come to this place seeking an ancient true immortal. It was said that an immortal god lived in this area, holding a high position in the celestial court, having given many sermons in Central Heaven, with his sacred name widely celebrated. This immortal was known as the white-haired ancestor. Rumor had it that the white-haired ancestor was waiting for a destined person. If chosen, they would be taken as an inheriting disciple and could eventually be ranked among the immortal class. Martial Resolution had no great desire for immortality. He simply wanted to become stronger. And the white-haired ancestor was the strongest individual he had heard of thus far. Filled with anticipation, Martial Resolution quickened his pace. Just then an aura approached rapidly from behind, startling Martial Resolution to turn and look. He saw a figure clad in white continuously appearing closer, arousing his vigilance. Judging by the other's aura, their cultivation level was not inferior to his. If they intended to attack, their speed would surely be faster. Martial Resolution stopped, waiting for the white-clad figure to arrive before him. Soon, that person appeared before him, and upon seeing their features, he was taken aback by their beauty and distinguished aura. A handsome face and outstanding temperament. The Heavenly Emperor looked at Martial Resolution, wearing a gentle smile. He spoke, I am Supreme, may I know how to address fellow Taoist? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:12, Supreme in Shock. Supreme? Such an arrogant title. Martial Resolution thought to himself, then cupped his fists and greeted, My name is Martial Resolution. Upon meeting fellow Taoist, I wonder what business you might have? Though Emperor Taihao seemed harmless, Martial Resolution remained cautious. Emperor Taihao smiled and said, I observe that your cause and effect seem to originate from the Celestial Spirit Great World. I have also been to the Celestial Spirit Great World, having ascended here thousands of years ago. Upon hearing this, Martial Resolution was secretly startled. The fact that the other could see through his cause and effect indicated a cultivation level stronger than his own. Feigning surprise, he asked, "Fellow Taoist has actually been to the celestial spirit great world. When was it, if I may ask?" Emperor Taihao sighed and said, "It was during the immortal demon war when I fled there." Hearing these words, Martial Resolution fell silent. He had experienced that catastrophe. While the celestial spirit great world narrowly escaped disaster, many other great thousand worlds suffered immensely. In this sense, the person wasn't lying, for during that time the celestial spirit great world was indeed a rare sanctuary. "Are you also seeking the white-haired ancestor?" Emperor Taihao shifted the subject and asked curiously. Martial Resolution nodded and said, "Having ascended to this realm, one must seek immortal fate. I heard the white-haired ancestor awaits a destined one, so I thought I might try." Emperor Taihao laughed, "How coincidental, so am I. Why don't we partner up and journey together and chat along the way? After ascending for such a long time, meeting a kindred spirit fills my heart with joy." Martial Resolution hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Thus, the two set off together. Emperor Taihao was adept at conversation. Every question Martial Resolution asked would receive a response, followed by a related inquiry from Emperor Taihao. Before reaching the white-haired ancestor's dojo, Martial Resolution already had a sense of regretting not meeting sooner. Emperor Taihao reminded him of Guwen, evoking memories of their long-ago acquaintance. Who knew after so many years he could still find such a soulmate? Several hours later, the two entered a valley where the flowers and plants started exhibiting different colors, still vibrant. They stopped talking and focused their gaze on the colorful surroundings. The white-haired ancestor is the celestial Tao Venerable of the celestial court. In the 3,000 great worlds you won't encounter her. If you came to Central Heaven a few eras later, you likewise wouldn't have the chance to meet her. This is our best opportunity. Even if we fail, just seeing the Supreme's true form would leave no regrets in this life. Emperor Taihao spoke with a peculiar tone, which fell upon Martial Resolution's ears as longing for the celestial Tao Venerable. Celestial Tao Venerable? It was the first time Martial Resolution heard this title. To be named supreme must mean this white-haired ancestor holds a high status in the celestial court. Perhaps comparable to the ancestor Master Wuxi's status in the celestial spirit great world. The ancestor of the immortals sounds immensely powerful. Martial Resolution's gaze became passionate. If he could obtain the white-haired ancestor's inheritance, he could surely achieve enlightenment and fulfill all his prior desires. Meanwhile, at the top of a nearby mountain, Guwen, clad in an azure robe, was gazing down upon them. Neither Martial Resolution, nor Emperor Taihao, nor the white-haired ancestor hidden in the depths of the valley sensed Guwen's presence. As long as Guwen wished, they wouldn't see him even if standing right before him. Guwen looked at Emperor Taihao with some pity in his heart. This son of heaven, possessing the greatest talent, would die in Central Heaven. An Xian and the Sin sensed the immortal emperor's eye that originated from Emperor Taihao's immortal emperor's eye. The celestial emperor helped him restore the power of the immortal emperor's eye, allowing him to absorb mana from every living being to grow stronger. Later he would engage in a decisive battle with Emperor Taihao in this realm. Before that, he needed to become the most wicked being so that Emperor Taihao could become the savior. For Emperor Taihao, this was a dead end. His only chance of survival was defeating Emperor Taihao, to once again be the most qualified son of heaven to succeed the celestial emperor. It was a very tragic path, gambling on the fact that the celestial emperor wasn't deceiving him. In truth, Emperor Taihao didn't trust the celestial emperor, hence he wished to enjoy his last moments. Guwen turned to look towards the valley. He saw the white-haired ancestor sitting under a peach tree, playing the zither, yet no sound emanated. The first time seeing the white-haired ancestor was at the Endless Tao Mountain, where Guwen went to listen to the Tao. Now meeting the white-haired ancestor again, Guwen felt a different sentiment in his heart. After several 100 million years, the white-haired ancestor was still at the late-stage Taoist Great Luo immortal realm in cultivation. This was the true situation of immortal cultivation. Seeing her increased Guwen's appreciation for what he currently possessed. Having cultivated to this realm, is escape still impossible? Celestial Tao Venerable. Guwen thought to himself, observing how the white-haired ancestor had become embroiled in the struggle between Emperor Taihao and the celestial emperor. The white-haired ancestor chose to support Emperor Taihao solely because Emperor Taihao's master was her grand disciple. Over the long years, Emperor Taihao's master had already fallen into chaos, yet this sentiment remained. Unfortunately, the white-haired ancestor would never have imagined that the so-called Emperor Taihao was actually the true body of the celestial emperor. It's not just her, all immortal gods in the celestial court wouldn't imagine. Every time the celestial emperor changes identity, he leaves no traces. Those immortal gods who knew the truth no longer exist. Guan came this time intending to assist martial resolution. Since the white-haired ancestor was destined to die, he chose to strengthen his old friend. According to the original fate, martial resolution did not earn the white-haired ancestor's trust. Instead, it was Emperor Taihao who stayed. Many years later, when martial resolution, along with great powers worldwide, campaigned against the human race led by Emperor Taihao, seeing him again shocked martial resolution. He never expected such a close friend would tread such an intensely wicked path. Under Guan's watchful eyes, martial resolution and Emperor Taihao entered the valley and met the white-haired ancestor. Facing this celestial Tao venerable, martial resolution was quite nervous, whereas Emperor Taihao appeared very composed. The white-haired ancestor was indeed waiting for Emperor Taihao. However, since martial resolution came, she symbolically issued a test, asking both to comprehend a great cauldron. Guan silently aided martial resolution with Tao intent, enabling him to first comprehend the secret technique within the cauldron, surprising the white-haired ancestor. Though surprised inwardly, the white-haired ancestor remained outwardly calm, as if she had predicted this outcome. Before Emperor Taihao awoke, she accepted martial resolution as a disciple. The process was clean and swift, making martial resolution believe the legends were indeed true. He was immensely excited and immediately bowed to the white-haired ancestor. After a long while, Emperor Taihao also awakened. He successfully comprehended the secret technique, but upon learning martial resolution had achieved enlightenment quicker, he was shocked. He gave martial resolution a deep look. His astonishment surpassed even that of the white-haired ancestor. So the talent of a mortal spirit can surpass that of the Son of Heaven? Thus, martial resolution and Emperor Taihao both apprenticed under the white-haired ancestor, to henceforth cultivate supreme Tao technique in this valley. The white-haired ancestor watched martial resolution, engrossed in discussion with Emperor Taihao, feeling a mix of emotions. She merely sought to wait for Emperor Taihao, unexpectedly encountering such a prodigy. His talent was average, but deep within his soul lay a peculiar true meaning of the great Tao. Coupled with his incredible comprehension, after her initial shock, the white-haired ancestor suddenly had an idea. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:13, Hongmeng Creation. After 3,000 years of cultivation at the white-haired ancestor's dojo, the heavenly emperor roamed the world once more, wildly absorbing living beings' cultivation levels. Those beings did not die after being deprived, but without cultivation in the middle heaven world, it was almost equivalent to a death sentence. As the heavenly emperor grew stronger, the various overlords of the world began to feel uneasy. They joined forces in an attempt to eliminate the heavenly emperor, but were repeatedly defeated. Meanwhile, the heavenly emperor cemented his fearsome reputation. Supreme demon god. His demonic might engulfed the world, leaving all beings anxious. With this great battle, even the Wuxia disciples learned of the supreme demon god's existence. The Wuxia disciples never expected that the human race in Central Heaven would be the first to initiate catastrophe in this world. In the celestial spirit great world, the human race was always the protagonist and savior in their understanding. In private, they discussed this matter, feeling that Central Heaven had become more dangerous than the celestial spirit great world. Time flew by. 7,000 years quickly passed. That year, within the valley dojo of the white-haired ancestor, Wu Ju, dressed in blue, bowed to the white-haired ancestor, knocking his head 3 times on the ground. The white-haired ancestor sat under the peach tree, her expression indifferent, her gaze falling upon Wu Ju without a ripple. Once Wu Ju stood up, the white-haired ancestor finally spoke. The Taoist technique I have imparted to you originates from chaos. My ancestor traveled through chaos and received a legacy. The cultivation technique and divine skills you have learned are imbued with the creations of the great Tao. In the future you may surpass me. Central Heaven is a new world, the order has yet to be established. I hope you think carefully about your actions lest you find yourself in an irreparable situation. I will not lend you a hand. Wu Ju immediately replied, Master, rest assured, I will not cause trouble for you in the future. The white-haired ancestor closed her eyes, indicating that it was time for Wu Ju to leave. Wu Ju hesitated for a moment, then asked, Master, Does the Supreme have some mission? Why did he leave so hastily before? You seem somewhat displeased with him. The white-haired ancestor, eyes still closed, answered, From now on, pretend you don't know him. His identity is special, his path is fraught with peril, and no one else can interfere. Hearing this, Wuju felt confused but suppressed his speculations, turning and leaving. He looked towards the celestial vault beyond the valley, feeling that everything had changed. Perhaps I can really make a name for myself in this world, Wuju thought of his abilities, feeling exhilarated. He was already looking forward to the journey ahead. Unbeknownst to him, the white-haired ancestor was watching him from behind. Comprehension even greater than the heavenly emperor's. Could you be the variable the ancestor mentioned? The white-haired ancestor's eyes sparkled with unusual luster, filled with expectations for Wuju's future. She originally planned to fully support the heavenly emperor, but Wuju's appearance made her reconsider. At the very least, there was no need to risk everything. The struggle for the singular position of the heavenly emperor was too dangerous. Unless there was no other choice, it was best not to get involved. Elsewhere, Guan, fishing by the lake, smiled. He saw that the white-haired ancestor's fate had changed, indicating she no longer intended to support the heavenly emperor. This was reciprocation for the teachings she once imparted. Guan thought while looking at the lake. His intention was to help Wuju, and by doing so he incidentally also helped the white-haired ancestor. This was a win-win situation, and he didn't mind the trouble, nor did he fear future changes. As for the heavenly emperor, he had no intention of involving himself with him. Setting down his fishing rod, he stretched his neck, the reflection in his eyes showing scenes of the underworld. Zhang Buku and Suyu were advancing, intending to utilize reincarnation to travel to Central Heaven. With more old friends coming to Central Heaven, Guan grew more eager for the future. Not just old friends from the celestial spirit great world, but also some he had met in the lifespan reincarnation were coming to Central Heaven. These old acquaintances he befriended in the past had now become great powers, coming to Central Heaven to break through their own limits. Guan once more looked at the heavenly Tao, where countless cosmic planes were weaving lines of destiny, with Central Heaven at the center. Suddenly, he noticed that the fortune of Central Heaven had changed slightly. He focused on sensing it. Mysteriously, he captured a will. This will was dispersed throughout the heavenly Tao, ubiquitous, watching over the masses, brewing a powerful force. The will of the celestial emperor. Though Guan had observed the heavenly Tao before, it was his first time capturing the celestial emperor's will pervading the entire heavenly Tao. What was the celestial emperor up to? He felt the celestial emperor's will probing even into the underworld. Was it searching for him? Guan was curious and saw this as a good opportunity, so he decided to observe the celestial emperor's will. Soon, his consciousness intruded into a fragment of memory. A great hall where the celestial emperor stood unmoving. Above, the dark red void churned with nebulae resembling demon gods. In front of the celestial emperor, 3 stone pillars stood, above which hovered a massive star like the sun, within which an eye moved as if it resided in another world, spying on the universe where the celestial emperor resided. The current celestial emperor was young, much like the heavenly emperor, devoid of any domineering aura. He gazed at the eye within the solar star, brows furrowed. My creation will doom me? The celestial emperor asked coldly. Next, a hoarse voice replied, That's right, you destroyed Hongming, and this cause and effect will entangle you, eventually backfiring upon you. This made Guan reflect on his experiences. He had gone to the Hongming Great World, breaking through there, leaving a deep impression. Though desolate, the Hongming Great World gave Guan a sense of hidden secrets. After becoming a saint, Guan looked again, seeing the Hongming Great World beneath the heavenly Tao, lying deeper within the cosmic plane. In terms of size, Hongming was even larger than the entire range of the heavenly Tao, like an abyss giant mouth beneath the heavenly Tao, ready to swallow it at any moment. However, the Hongming Great World hid no saints or supreme emperors of merging Tao, only a few lingering souls lurking in the shadows, or faint wills waiting to be born. Could the founding of the heavenly Tao be related to the Hongming Great World? Guan grew interested. Is Hongming truly so terrifying? The celestial emperor asked, tinged with doubt. The hoarse voice continued, Hongming's history predates chaos itself. In past eras, beings as powerful as you were born there, yet Hongming persists, never entirely swallowed by chaos. Surely that's not mere coincidence. The celestial emperor fell silent again. Guan became interested in the eye, but he could not perform cause and effect deduction on it within this memory fragment. The memory was simply too ancient, appearing before the birth of the heavenly Tao, making it difficult to estimate this entity's cultivation level. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:14. Mysterious Curse. How many years has the heavenly Tao existed? It can no longer be measured by time, yet even so, Guan remains vigilant against unknown cause and effect. Although the Celestial Emperor does not greatly revere the existence of this I, beings that lived before the heavenly Tao are unimaginable entities, coexisting with the great Tao. I refuse to believe it. I will see how Hongmeng retaliates against me. The Celestial Emperor snorted coldly, his tone filled with disdain. If I can exterminate the Lord of Hongmeng, I can annihilate the cause and effect of Hongmeng. After speaking, the Celestial Emperor turned around and stepped forward, while the eye within the solar star fixed its gaze firmly on him. Guan gazed steadily at this eye, sensing a strange power from it. The owner of this eye seemed to be cursed. The root of anything is the great Tao, and curses also originate from the great Tao. They can be observed. The curse power entwining this eye is more profound and unfathomable than any curse Guan has encountered before. Merely sensing this curse power made Guan feel that the owner of this eye was suffering greatly. Perhaps he existed within the solar star because he was cursed. As the Celestial Emperor departed, the scene suddenly changed. The Celestial Emperor appeared above the vast bright light of the heavenly Tao. His aura had already changed, 7/10 similar to the Celestial Emperor Guan observed before. Now it was the early creation period of the heavenly Tao. The Celestial Emperor was immersed in his creation, his face full of satisfaction. The heavenly Tao was newly established with no living beings yet, but he could already see the future of the heavenly Tao. Gradually, the smile on the Celestial Emperor's face disappeared. He seemed to see something. Anger flashed in his eyes. However, from Guan's perspective, a shadow appeared behind the Celestial Emperor. The figure of that shadow was identical to the Celestial Emperor, only its movements did not match, as if the shadow was about to come alive. And the Celestial Emperor did not notice the anomaly behind him. When the Celestial Emperor bent down to rush downward, that shadow lingered in the void. Guan saw clearly that the Celestial Emperor was unable to perceive it because the shadow's realm was far above his. At that time, the Celestial Emperor had not yet achieved the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao, while that shadow was already at the Supreme Emperor Perfect Cultivation level. The memory fragment shattered again and Guan entered another memory. A long time passed. Guan opened his eyes, his fishing rod unchanged. No fish had yet taken the bait, but it was already near dusk. From the Celestial Emperor's will, Guan glimpsed many beings. These beings appeared in the Celestial Emperor's memories because the Celestial Emperor was currently puzzled. Just like that shadow, the Celestial Emperor did not notice at first, but as he reached the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao, he became aware of its existence, though he could not trace its whereabouts. This time, the Celestial Emperor used his will to search the entire heavenly Tao, not targeting Guan but the cause and effect of Hongmeng. As for why the Celestial Emperor conducted the search at this time, perhaps he sensed something. Guan started to reel in his rod. The recent observations sparked new guesses and understandings of the great Tao within him. He was now very interested in Hongmeng, for the Celestial Emperor ironically could create the heavenly Tao seemingly by leveraging the cause and effect of the Hongmeng Great World. He hesitated about whether to take a trip to the Hongmeng Great World. While the Celestial Emperor might not perceive the existence of the Hongmeng Great World, he could step directly into it. Forget it. Better not go. Focus on becoming stronger himself. Guan could see a long future for the heavenly Tao. As long as the future could be seen, it meant there was no calamity that could threaten him. He would not settle for the primordial Tai True Saint realm. Even if there was no one in the same realm on the surface, he would still strive to grow stronger. When there were no more puzzles in his heart, that would be the moment of truly being the strongest. The supreme demon god roamed invincible. No creature could subdue him, and in the years that followed, human race strongmen began to rise, following him in battle, making all living beings in the world feel a sense of crisis. Thus, the one who established the concept of the demon race, a figure of great power, called upon all the demon race of the world to gather and select a demon emperor together, to unite the demon race of the world, and jointly resist the supreme demon god. For a time, the entire world became lively, with powerful beings flying over the Taoist field of the beginningless every day, provoking much discussion among the Wuxia disciples. On this day in the courtyard, Xiaolan came to find Guan. She sat by Guan's side and curiously asked, "Is that little creature from before going to rise in this grand event, becoming one of the 7 demon emperors, or even the ancestor of 10,000 beasts?" She always remembered that day she and an ex-aunt accompanied Guan fishing. When they encountered a fire-red crow, Guan said it would become the ancestor of 10,000 beasts in the future. Its name was Fangqiu. Guan was holding a book recently written by Wuxia. He replied casually, "That's right, as early as a few years ago he had already become famous throughout the world, just that the fame hadn't reached Wuxia yet." Upon hearing this, Xiaolan became even more curious. She began to question about this upcoming demon race grand event, and Guan answered them one by one as these were events soon to happen, and Xiaolan couldn't interfere, revealing the secret wouldn't affect much. From Guan's answers, Xiaolan could already feel how strong the demon race had become. She found it incredible. After spending so many years in Central Heaven, she felt time flew by quickly. The first day of arrival seemed just like yesterday, yet during these years Central Heaven's foundation already far surpassed the celestial spirit great world. The demon race had over 100 beings reaching the Taiqing golden immortal realm. What kind of talent was that? Her mindset began to change, from looking down at Central Heaven to looking up. For the first time she felt her own talent was quite ordinary. By the way, what is the origin of that supreme demon god? Is it also a pawn of the heavenly court immortals? Xiaolan asked, perplexed. Such a powerful demon race couldn't overcome the supreme demon god? Then how terrifying must the supreme demon god be? Guan glanced at her, smiling. You have become smart. Xiaolan fell silent for a moment, then asked, does it have to be that all living beings slaughter each other for the heavenly Tao to advance? Such rules seem too absurd. In your eyes it might seem as if the heavenly Tao is at a standstill with living beings born and perishing, but in reality, each tribulation breeds stronger beings, their cultivation levels, their destiny strong enough to rival the entire heaven and earth. The heavenly Tao is indeed unfair to mortal spirits, but it favors the immortals. Guan answered, stating the facts. The celestial court also had similar tribulations and reincarnations, each time consuming 90% of the immortal gods, yet those who survived grew stronger. Those celestial Tao supremes were those who survived the calamities, breaking through limits. One immortal's destiny equals millions of immortals. And it was with such a strategy that the celestial emperor continuously grew stronger. However, such a strategy also had limits, and now the celestial emperor was aware of a bottleneck, wanting to change the heavenly Tao. Xiaolan looked up at Guan asking, Senior brother, will you interfere with Central Heaven in the future? Guan chuckled faintly and said, since I am in this world, how can I be completely isolated from it? Once the dojo opens, trouble will find its way here. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:15. The dojo enters the world. Upon hearing Guan's words, Xiaolan deeply agreed, and she wouldn't try to persuade Guan not to open the dojo. All living beings must integrate into the world. Their efforts in cultivation are just for more freedom within it. If it's just to avoid calamity, then why bother cultivating? Dying early would end it all, wouldn't it? The Wuxia disciples fear being expelled from the sect, yet they also eagerly anticipate the day the dojo opens, wanting to witness Central Heaven with their own eyes. Not only the Wuxia disciples, but Xiaolan also holds such anticipation. After chatting for a while, Xiaolan returned to her cultivation. After she left, Shenzhen, sitting before the artifact refining cauldron, turned his head to Guan and said, Fangqiu Demon Emperor, I can somewhat deduce, but that supreme demon god I cannot fathom at all. What is his origin? A pitiful son of heaven, but he is not worthy of sympathy, for he orchestrated the cleansing of the 3,000 great worlds, Guan replied. These words made Shenzhen's heart tremble, and she asked in surprise, how is that high son of heaven pitiful, and why did he become a demon personally? Precisely because of this, that's why I say he's pitiful. Right now, he can't act on his own accord, as the celestial court harbors even greater powers than he does. Upon hearing this, Shenzhen immediately thought of a certain being. The legendary celestial emperor. Though she had heard of the celestial Tao venerable in the celestial court, in many myths and legends, the celestial emperor was the supreme existence. Shenzhen clicked her tongue in wonder, realizing that the internal struggle within the celestial court was no simpler than those among mortal spirit forces. The last time she heard from Guan, that son of heaven held the reign in the celestial court, yet in the blink of an eye he fell to the human world as a demon, descending from the heavens to the mundane world. Becoming a demon does not have a good end. Even if Shenzhen believed the immortal gods were hypocritical, she trusted that the celestial court would always uphold the principle that evil does not triumph over good. Shenzhen stopped questioning and continued her enlightenment. The Taoist field of the beginningless was tranquil and harmonious, yet the outside world ebbed and flowed. The demon race summit proceeded smoothly, ultimately selecting the 7 demon emperors, who together discussed the future of the demon race, quickly deciding to campaign against the supreme demon god. However, the supreme demon god was not alone. Besides the human race supporting him, there were numerous powerful beings. As he grew stronger, more beings followed him, gradually forming a great force. In such a context, the human race rapidly rose as well, their reproduction abilities incredibly formidable. Their offspring's talents were all exceptional, born with the innate Taoist body that all beings longed for. The body of the human race was called the innate Taoist body. As all beings cultivated, they would evolve into the innate Taoist body. Because of this, the human race was so extraordinary. They were created by the celestial emperor based on the innate Taoist body, born with great fortune. Humans of Central Heaven were without lifespan limits, making them even stronger. Several thousands of years passed again. On this day, Enzazai brought news to all the disciples. The ancestor plans to deactivate the dojo. This news excited all the disciples. They could understand why the dojo was being deactivated. The spiritual energy and Tao intent within the dojo were too dense, and once outsiders set foot in it, they would sense something extraordinary here. Even if they disguised themselves as mortals, outsiders wouldn't believe it. Simultaneously, Enzazai also informed them of the upper cultivation level set by the ancestor, forbidding anyone to exceed the free immortal cultivation level. Such cultivation level in the Great Thousand World wasn't very low, but in Central Heaven, it truly was just mortal. At noon, Guan stood on the cliff of the Mountain of No End, gazing at the celestial vault. He was looking at the palace of the Polestar in the celestial court. He chose this time to open the dojo because the celestial emperor was about to enter the reincarnation period. Heavenly Emperor Taihao was not merely a clone. To make the cause and effect and destiny completely different, Heavenly Emperor Taihao was essentially the son of the celestial emperor. The celestial emperor needed time to fully transfer his realm and soul into Heavenly Emperor Taihao. Guan saw that even if Heavenly Emperor Taihao became the celestial emperor, he wouldn't fully inherit the celestial emperor's memory, requiring long years for integration. To him, this period was too long, yet to the celestial emperor, it was insignificant. Of course, if the heavenly Tao encountered issues during this process, the celestial emperor could directly return. Taking advantage of the celestial emperor being occupied with reincarnation, Guan could finally breathe some fresh air. Suhan arrived beside Guan, excitedly asking, "Ancestor, if beings enter our territory and provoke us, can we retaliate?" Guan kept his eyes fixed on the celestial vault and softly replied, "Of course you can. If any outsider stirs trouble, you may act according to the situation. I won't blame you for it." Upon hearing this, Suhan instantly beamed with joy, thanked Guan and then turned to leave, ready to spread the news to all disciples. Guan continued to stare at the celestial vault, waiting until nightfall, with billions of stars adorning the sky, beautiful as a painting. When he turned around, the moon set and the sun rose, heralding a new day. All disciples were making preparations, looking forward eagerly. A year later, at the break of dawn, the spiritual energy of the Wuxia Dao field began to sink, quickly alerting all the disciples. The disciples emerged from their buildings. To welcome Central Heaven, they abandoned their cave mansions and constructed pavilions, even towns resembling a dynasty. Once the dojo was thoroughly closed, the disciples began their activities. Guan allowed them to wander and reside on this continent but forbade them from going to sea. The disciples departed in groups. Even if they could not leave the continent, they were full of anticipation. Even an Xian and Shenzhen descended the mountain. Guan stood on the mountain, watching the disciples explore with excitement, a smile appearing on his face. He understood the disciples were stifled for too long. He often snuck out, but the disciples couldn't, so it was quite hard on them. Yet this was their own choice. He wouldn't alter his attitude because of it. Guan noticed that on a nearby mountain, Fairy Yaoxian was also gazing into the distance. Seeing this lady, the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life unavoidably surfaced in Guan's mind. Previously, he revisited the road of reincarnation with the identity of Ji, and he suddenly thought, should he let the Emperor of Eternal Life tread it once more? To see if the Emperor of Eternal Life could create an extraordinary life in Central Heaven. But now Central Heaven wasn't strong enough. Once the Emperor of Eternal Life reached the realm of the heaven-opening Daluo Immortal, it would attract the gaze of immortal gods. Guan did not continue to stare at Fairy Yaoxian but after a moment, turned around and returned to his house. Even Shenzhen had left, allowing him to enjoy some solitude. After the dojo closed, No spirits from Central Heaven rushed over, because Central Heaven was indeed too vast. During the wait, the disciples' excitement gradually subsided. After waiting for 120 years, someone finally reached this continent. A man in a Taoist robe riding a banana leaf crossing the sea to arrive. He was a human race cultivator with cultivation at the profound Yuan-free immortal realm. Such cultivation was not strong in Central Heaven, but also not the weakest. Upon discovering that this continent hid many beings, he developed a keen interest in it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:16. The variable from Earth. Someone is coming. Before the Taoists set foot on the continent where Wuxia was located, all the Wuxia disciples sensed it. They were quite excited but did not go to greet him. Instead, they took their respective positions waiting for the first test. Guan was practicing Tai Chi in the courtyard, wearing loose white clothes, feeling leisurely and content. Shenzhen, for once, was not sitting in front of the artifact refining cauldron. She stood aside, watching Guan practice, and curiously asked, "What kind of connection will this newcomer have with Wuxia?" She could deduce the past of beings with higher cultivation levels than herself but couldn't predict the future of Wuxia. She saw the Taoist's past in her mind, yet couldn't foresee his future with Wuxia. The future of the Taoist seemed missing a piece, making his future complex and intertwined. "Wouldn't it be more interesting to see for yourself?" Guan replied casually with a calm tone, seemingly uninterested in the Taoist. In fact, he was indeed not interested, not even thinking of meeting the person. His arrival merely symbolized that Wuxia was about to merge into Central Heaven. More interesting people would come to Wuxia in the future, and Wuxia would also provide opportunities for some cultivators, making them figures of world renown. Overall, Wuxia would bring many possibilities. Guan was quite open about this, only requiring his disciples not to reveal their identity as Wuxia disciples. Central Heaven is not simple. There are immortal gods watching from above, so Guan's Tao intent enveloped the continent, allowing the disciples' Qi concealment techniques to escape the scrutiny of immortal gods. Seeing Guan's demeanor, Shenzhen knew he was completely uninterested in the visitor. She rolled her eyes and smilingly asked, "Will you take in disciples in the future?" "Everything has its own destiny." Guan answered nonchalantly. "Destined by whom?" Shenzhen almost blurted out, but she knew Guan would never admit it. Even until now she wasn't sure how strong Guan was. She could only confirm that he was stronger than most immortal gods but not to the extent of disregarding the celestial court. While she was lost in thought, the Taoist had already arrived. He folded the banana leaf and began walking on foot. When he saw that a human race lived here, he felt relieved and began to converse warmly. Through this Taoist, the Wuxia disciples could also learn about the current situation of the human race. The human race cultivates the fastest in the world, but because it's too fast, crossing the tribulation is more challenging than for other beings. Now, with the presence of the supreme demon god, survival has become even more difficult for humanity. This Taoist disliked the actions of the supreme demon god, so he left the human race to live alone. However, wherever he went, other beings either fled in panic or hunted him. Eventually, this Taoist chose to stay on the continent, which increased the pressure on the Wuxia disciples. They initially thought this person was just a passerby, but never expected him to stay. Especially those disciples who greeted him silently exclaimed in distress. However, Guan did not let the disciples be embarrassed. 6 months later, he let an opportunity far away emerge, and the vast aura immediately attracted the Taoist. During these 6 months, the Taoist found that the human race here was not very strong, and the spiritual energy wasn't very suitable for cultivation. His interest was already waning. Now, feeling a vast spiritual energy, he bade farewell to those around him and then flew off the continent. The 2 disciples who had made his acquaintance let out a sigh of relief, as did the disciples disguised as shopkeepers, pedestrians and officials in the street. Because of one person, more than 2 million disciples had to disguise themselves as members of a dynasty, with nobles and commoners, which was more challenging than they had anticipated. Born in Central Heaven, the beings had significant cultivation and large spheres of activity, occasionally moving to another place, often catching the Wuxia disciples off guard. Once the Taoist departed, the disciples could finally breathe a sigh of relief. On the mountain of no end in the courtyard, the ghost mother of ephemera stood in front of Guan, remarking, "That person was quite abiding by the rules, not forcing his way up the mountain when told not to." Guan sat on the steps before the pavilion, carving a wooden sculpture, softly laughed and said, Indeed quite rule-abiding, and he didn't steal my medicinal herbs either. The ghost mother of Ephemera came precisely because of this matter. She asked, "Master, what if someone wants to pick your medicinal herbs in the future or force their way up the mountain, what should we do?" Guwen replied casually, "If mistakes are made, they naturally deserve punishment. Depending on the situation, for minor infractions, erase their memory and expel them. For serious ones, let their soul dissipate here." Upon hearing this, the ghost mother of Ephemera didn't feel a trace of fear, instead showing a smile. Handling things this way is quite refreshing. If they had to constantly endure grievances to conceal their cultivation level, their Tao heart would be unsettled. Afterward, the ghost mother of Ephemera stopped bothering Guwen and turned to leave. Not long after she left, Guwen suddenly looked up, squinting, gazing toward the horizon. He discovered a mysterious aura coming from the chaos, rapidly approaching the heavenly Tao. This speed had already surpassed the full speed of a Tao Extreme Daluo Immortal. Moreover, this aura was exceedingly difficult to detect, even for the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao. For the Celestial Emperor, this aura should be very faint too. Yet, if the Celestial Emperor was observant, he should be able to notice it. Otherwise, this aura wouldn't have dared to descend coinciding with his rebirth. Guwen narrowed his eyes and an unusual color shone in them. That is, in Guwen's pupils, a meteor was reflected, a meteor shining with azure light traveling across the void. Upon closer inspection, within the azure light were actually 3 train carriages. These were the carriages of a high-speed rail from Earth, containing dozens of mortal auras. Most of these mortals were sleeping with their eyes closed, a few were holding mobile phones reminding Guwen of his past life. The clothing of these people, as well as their phone models, were very similar to what he used to know before his death in his previous life, at least recognizable to him. What on earth? Where did these people come from? Judging by their state, they seemed unaware that the carriages were moving through the universe, as if they were resting in the night. Guwen closely observed them, calculating their cause and effect. He found these people came from an extremely distant Earth, with their cause and effect originating from beyond the chaos, to his surprise. However, these people were indeed ordinary humans from Earth, with no cultivation level, living mundane first halves of their lives with no contact with extraordinary power. As their carriages moved forward, they were enveloped by a mysterious force, directly transported away from Earth, out of the universe, crossing through the void and into chaos. This process was long and complex, yet the people inside the carriages were entirely unaware. Act of a saint. Guwen was nearly certain of this, though this saint seemed very wary of chaos, not daring to reveal his power. The force within the carriage was very faint. If the Celestial Emperor could perceive it, he could exert full power to stop these 3 train carriages. He deduced these 3 carriages would silently break into the heavenly Tao and fall into the 3,000 great worlds. When the people inside the carriages awaken, the carriage would have already stopped on a desolate land. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 9:17. Great Infinite Demon Ancestor Guwen was very interested in the mastermind behind the 3 train cars. He no longer fixed his gaze on those train cars, but instead turned his eyes towards the distant Earth. Before this, he was uncertain about how vast the chaos was, but now he could be sure that these 3 train cars flew in from somewhere outside the chaos. What kind of force orchestrated all of this and for what purpose? In Guwen's pupils, the Earth was reflected. In the cosmos, Earth was situated in a small corner, appearing so lonely. Waves stirred in Guwen's eyes because he could affirm that the Earth where he lived in his previous life was this very Earth. His vision began to enlarge and the Earth rapidly shrank in his eyes. The solar system appeared before him and then the solar system also started to shrink. Then it was the Milky Way galaxy, the image kept contracting and soon the Milky Way also became smaller than dust. Ultimately, the entire universe appeared in Guwen's eyes. His pupils abruptly contracted, as such a vast universe was unexpectedly held in the palm of a terrifying existence. In the dark purple boundless void, a truly immense physique floated. Its upper body was human-like, the lower half a swirling nebula changing colors, with the upper body covered in black hair, and a face marked by a black hole devoid of features, long hair fluttering like twisting rivers. This mysterious entity had 8 arms, with one hand holding dozens of universes, the universe where Earth resided just one among many, like dozens of glowing dots suspended in its palm. What kind of being was this? Even the well-informed Guwen felt uneasy seeing this being, as if encountering an ultimate evil demon god. The mysterious eight-armed entity did not emit overwhelming demonic chi or resentment. On the contrary, it had not a hint of aura, quietly residing in the void, indistinguishable whether it was cultivating or slumbering. Gradually, it raised another arm which gently swept towards the palm holding dozens of universes. A meteor soared from one universe heading towards the distant chaos. This meteor also contained a mortal, just one person, a woman. Although this meteor, like the 3 train cars, traveled fast, its destination was in the future. Guwen stared at the eight-armed entity. A name surged in his mind. The Great Infinite Demon Ancestor. This moniker could not be uttered directly. Otherwise one would suffer an eternal curse, not even death leading to the soul's redemption. Under Guwen's gaze, the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor would periodically wave his hand, selecting mortals from the universes under his control to send into chaos. Before Guwen's current life began, Earthlings had descended upon the 3,000 great worlds, but all perished on the path of immortal cultivation. Guwen pondered whether his birth in the celestial spirit great world was also the work of the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor? No. He reincarnated into the celestial spirit great world, whereas the mortals sent by the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor descended directly into other worlds, equivalent to transmigrators. This indicated that Guwen's mode of arrival differed from theirs. However, he could ascertain that the earth from his previous life was indeed within the grasp of the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor. The form of the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor was immensely vast, even larger than the sum of all heavenly Tao spaces. Guwen could affirm that the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor had already become a saint. Yet, he seemed fearful of stepping into the chaos, thus could only probe it in this manner. Before the 3 train cars landed, Guwen watched as the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor sent out another dozen Earth mortals, some heading to the past, others to the future. Only those train cars remained in Guwen's current timeline. He withdrew his gaze, no longer looking at the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor, to avoid disturbing him. Unexpectedly, outside the chaos, such a terrifying existence was eyeing the chaos. Guwen felt there were mysteries within the chaos he was not aware of. He stood up, stored away the wooden carving in his hand, and walked out of the courtyard. He intended to find a quiet place to contemplate the mysteries of the chaos. Several days later, Guwen had just finished picking medicinal herbs and was heading toward the Mountain of No End. On the way he began to observe the dozens of Earth mortals sent by those 3 train cars. These mortals had already landed. They found themselves on a barren Earth, though they faced no threat from demon beasts, yet for survival they fell into internal strife. The food inside the train cars was consumed. Wherever they walked without years of journeying, it would be hard to reach any town. In half a month, some cultivators would pass through their location and take any surviving people into an immortal cultivation sect. Ultimately, out of this group of Earthlings only 8 survived. Among the 8, 6 couldn't withstand the torment of time, dying along the path of immortal cultivation. Only 2 were able to ascend to central heaven. Guwen paid them such close attention because he too was once an Earthling. Witnessing these Earthlings' ordeal, Guwen felt deeply fortunate. Had he not possessed the ability to evolve his lifespan, it would have been challenging to survive to this day. In this life he was born into the Ji family and successfully entered the Supreme Sect. How lucky, then, to look at these people who did nothing wrong but experienced so many hardships. Guwen raised his right hand, a bronze dagger appeared in his hand, which he then broke into a handle and a blade, throwing them casually forward. The handle and blade plummeted towards the soil, yet before touching the ground they fell into the 3,000 great worlds. Guwen had embedded divine skills within the handle and blade, and if united, they could exhibit the formidable strength of a Tao treasure. These 2 items landed in the hands of the 2 destined to ascend to central heaven. Without Guwen's intervention they could also ascend to central heaven. Guwen's actions could enhance their achievements, while also sowing the seeds of resolving enmity. According to the original fate, during the long years, these 2 experienced too many events, ultimately parting ways and even becoming adversaries, a pity in Guwen's eyes. What should have been the closest 2, through worldly misunderstandings, ended up on divergent paths, becoming each other's nemesis. In the future, under the manipulation of the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor, more Earthlings would be sent directly to central heaven. The Great Infinite Demon Ancestor continually sent people. There must be some calculation, and Guwen helping these 2 was also an attempt to discern the Great Infinite Demon Ancestor's ambition from them. Guwen did not halt his pace. When he saw his handle and blade picked up by the 2, a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. These 2 were childhood friends, growing up together and went to work in the same city. only to be swept away by a mysterious force while returning home into the 3,000 great worlds. When the dozens of passengers in the train car turned on each other, they clung tightly together, even rallying others, ultimately becoming the leaders of this group of Earthlings. At this moment, in the wilderness, a young man in a white shirt and jeans held the blade handle single-handedly, lifting it above his head. Bathed in sunlight, he squinted to make out the tiny etchings on the handle. "Wei Yi, this blade is amazing. I used it to cut through rock like it was tofu." Next to him came an excited male voice as a crew-cut youth in a black tank top with tattooed arms shouted. His build was more robust than the youth in the white shirt. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 9:18, Kindred Spirits. The man in the white shirt, known as Wei Yi, turned his head to look. His lips were chapped and his face was pale. He said helplessly, "Luan, save your strength, don't faint later." Luan held a blade less than 20 centimeters long, as if it were a treasure, repeatedly comparing it to a large stone nearby, which made Wei Yi feel both angry and amused. Wei Yi stuffed the knife handle in his hand into his trouser pocket and came to Luan's side, saying, "Let's go, we should continue to look for food. If we can't find any, not only will there be trouble but we'll starve to death as well." Hearing this, Luan nodded. He carefully held the blade, afraid of getting cut. The two of them picked a direction and walked. "Wei Yi, where do you think we are? In the northwest's uninhabited area, or have we gone abroad?" "I'm not sure either. Maybe we are no longer on Earth." "Really? Have we traveled through time and space? Anyway, I think this place is weird. Every night I feel like someone is watching our carriage." The two chatted sporadically. Their fear of the unfamiliar land had lessened significantly due to their hunger. Even if a fierce beast appeared before them, they would fight. Wei Qing and Luan, who came from Earth, stumbled into a great thousand worlds immortal cultivation realm. For Guan, decades were fleeting, but for them, it was an agonizing time. The 8 Earthlings who survived were taken by cultivators to their sect, but only Wei Qing was found to have good talent for immortal cultivation. The other 7 spent their lives struggling to achieve anything. Initially, Wei Qing would protect them, but he often had to go into seclusion. After being bullied by a group of disciples, Luan decided to leave the sect solo. Eventually, he joined the demon sect, practicing evil skills, and formally embarked on the cultivation path. When the two met again, they were in opposition, belonging to justice and evil. Wei Qing from Earth wasn't that rigid. Seeing Luan, he was still happy and sympathized with Luan's reasons for joining the demon sect. Unfortunately, their relationship could only remain hidden from then on. Guan wrote their stories into a book for interested disciples to read. One day, another outsider arrived on the continent, making the Wuxia disciples vigilant once more. With prior experience, the disciples became more composed. Simultaneously, Guan stood on the mountain top, watching the 7 demon emperors besieging the supreme demon god. The supreme demon god was transformed from the heavenly emperor. As a being who once reached the realm of mixed element, profound, venerable, immortal, even if his cultivation level had dissipated and he had to start anew, he was not inferior to the 7 demon emperors. In the first decisive battle, he forcibly killed a demon emperor, causing others to retreat with clipped wings. The news spread across the land, causing panic among all living beings. Meanwhile, the human race, upon hearing the news, became more unscrupulous. Gradually, to the spirits of Central Heaven, the human race seemed like evil demons and all living beings feared them. If this continued and the immortal gods did not take action, no one in Central Heaven could stop the supreme demon god. The supreme demon god roamed the 8 directions, devouring the mana of great powers everywhere, prompting some in the human race to imitate him. The innate humans of Central Heaven had unparalleled talent and exceptional comprehension. They created various evil cultivation techniques to devour others' mana, chi power, and divine sense, exaggerating their cultivation speed. In the subsequent years, all living beings clearly felt the human race's growth speed, and they felt immense pressure. The visitor to the continent was not from the human race. He merely transformed into a human form. Initially frightened by so many gathered on the continent, he thought he had stumbled into the human race's territory, only to find that the humans here were not as ruthless as those he encountered before and were even quite enthusiastic. His arrival brought the Wuxia disciples much news about the world's great matters, and the disciples also let him realize that not all humans were inherently cruel. Several days later, Zizai came to the mountain of No End to visit Guan. Guan was practicing calligraphy under a tree. Facing Nzazai's greeting, he merely nodded slightly without speaking. Ancestor, will the supreme demon god causing chaos in the world come to our continent? Nzazai asked. Guan replied, maybe. If he does come with outside guests on the continent, what should we do? Nzazai asked again, his brow furrowed, eyes full of anxiety. These days he gained new insights into Central Heaven. He found that the Wuxia disciples no longer had to pretend and had started to lag behind the Central Heaven spirits. The spirits of Central Heaven had exceptional qualities, not to mention those powerful enough to roam the world. From birth they reached heights unattainable for others. With me here, why worry? Guan answered lightly and then paused his actions. He looked up at Nzazai, smiled and continued, since you recognize the gap and feel the pressure, then strive to cultivate. This continent is vast and there's no need for everyone to wait together to host outsiders. Cultivate well. Nzazai looked at the ancestor, frowning and asking, can we really catch up? When they first arrived in Central Heaven, there were no spirits in sight. At that time, the disciples had a transcendent attitude observing all things. But now, their cultivation level was insignificant in Central Heaven. Watching those spirits be born and surpass them, the disciples were somewhat struck and felt lost. Many things, if you look at them after 10,000 years or 1,000,000 years, the situation might be different. You can only control yourself. Throughout history there have been countless geniuses and great powers, but few can survive for long. Guan spoke earnestly, talent wasn't something he could change. The Wuxia disciples came from the celestial spirit great world, which did not count as first class even among the 3,000 great worlds. How could their talent compare with the Central Heaven spirits, who were at the center of the heavenly Tao? Being around Guan, the disciples' insight into the great Tao continually grew. While they might not deeply feel it now, upon achieving enlightenment in the future, they would understand the importance of enlightenment. The Central Heaven spirits' talent was strong, but when they hit the bottleneck of attaining the Daoyuo Dao fruit, they would encounter obstacles. Enlightenment relies not only on innate comprehension but also on acquired creation. After listening to Guan, Nzazai took a deep breath, raised his hand respectfully and said, I understand. I will ensure they cultivate well without slacking. Guan laughed and said, being surpassed by local spirits isn't necessarily a bad thing. At least when you disguise yourself, it won't be so exhausting since you are originally not as good. This remark left Nzazai unsure of how to respond, so he could only smile wryly. Nzazai looked at the paper on the table before Guan and saw two names. Curiously he asked, Ancestor, who are Wei Qing and Luan? Guan replied, two destined individuals who will come to us in the future. The reason he wrote their names was partly out of idleness and partly to probe deeper into the causes and effects between these two and the great infinite demon ancestor through repeated writing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible.